Chapter 1233. Do Qiong and the other two escorted the two of them forward at a rather fast pace. If they had been on a good horse, they would have been able to travel more than 800 li. Although it was now a civilian road, it was much smoother and wider than the official road of the past. The official road had already been built by the imperial court for the common people. Every year, the common people had to volunteer, and if they didn't work, they had to fork out money. In other words, they had to hire servants or be called laborers. If they didn't want to work, it was easy to do. They just had to replace them with something else. The imperial court's tax was actually passed to the common people, while the tax on merchants was collected in proportion to their assets. Moreover, the tax on merchants was very irregular. Most of the time, it was calculated according to the population, and this population was calculated according to the agricultural tax. Thus, although the status of farmers was higher than that of merchants, they had to bear a heavy burden of tax. It was not worth it. After Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan arrived, they began to instigate the imperial court to levy a special business tax. In the beginning, the tax was based on a small percentage. Later on, the normal tax system in history was still not the same, because there was also the rent and tax of the farmers. In the past few years, collecting the tax on merchants had been very difficult, but even so, the imperial court's revenue had clearly increased. Once Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan stabilized their positions, the tax on merchants began to increase. Last year, when the tax was distributed on a large scale, no one in the Great Tang could stop it. Whether it was the officials, the great clans, or the hidden business consortiums, when faced with these two powerful individuals, there was no other choice but to obediently exchange benefits with them. Last year's revenue from the national treasury was around 100 million string of coins, and this year, it would definitely reach 250 million strings of coins. It wasn't that the Great Tang was poor. It was the imperial court's national treasury and ordinary farmers who didn't have much land that was poor. In the past, it was divided into two extremes, with the government and merchants on one side and the workers and peasants on the other. Those who controlled absolute resources didn't have to pay much tax. Now the tax was collected based on income, and the price was that Zhang Xiaobao, Wang Wan, and Li Longji had to give up the right to distribute the railway. Li Longji appeared depressed and uncomfortable on this point. In truth, he was much better off than before. At the very least, the national treasury and his own internal funds were abundant. But this was how people were. The more they obtained, the more they wanted more. At that time, Zhang Xiaobao had discussed letting Li Longji wait patiently for a few years. Then, as the resources of the railway increased, the people who made the exchange would naturally know what they had lost. Wang Wan believed that things would eventually go according to Zhang Xiaobao's plan. Not to mention that people nowadays didn't understand Taida's economic methods. Even if they did, they couldn't beat Zhang Xiaobao. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to cheat so much money back then. As a result, when the imperial court exploited the commoners to build roads, the commoners were very unwilling to work. If they could slack off, they would. Most importantly, the commoners did not have the strength to work. The imperial court did not provide them with food or drink, and did not even provide them with tools. Under such circumstances, wanting to fix the road was no different from a fool's dream. The reason why the road was good now was because the commoners' yearning for a better life in the future was related to the economic foundation they had. It was a kind of spontaneous labor behavior. In addition, there were merchants who helped to pay for it. Everyone had the same goal, so a road that was smoother and more spacious than the official road was produced. The real macro control was like this. It was a little worse than the inaction system, but it followed the rules. If you wanted the commoners to do something, you directly ordered them to do it. It was better to provide them with a good policy environment. Then you would find that the little drops of rain and dew you gave to the commoners would give you green willows and red flowers in return. Of course, the premise of all this was the ratio between the ability and honesty of the people in power. It was not that the more honest the better, and it was also not that the stronger the ability, the better. The balance between the two was the Tao. The sound of the horses kicking and the wheels rolling could be heard. Do Qiong and the other two people were on either side of the carriage. There was no coachman on the carriage. The old man did not know how to drive a carriage. He had never even owned an animal before, so how could he learn how to drive a carriage? The mule pulling the carriage was not a newcomer. It knew that it had to follow the road and not go to the side. At the same time, it knew that it should try to maintain the same speed as the rider, unless the rider was running too fast. The child who had never sat in a carriage looked at the scenery on both sides and looked back. He was very excited. The old man was nervous. He already knew that the person he was going to meet was a high official, so high that he did not dare to think about it. He was afraid that he would say something wrong and get his head chopped off. He was even more worried that his grandson would be implicated by him. So he sat on the coachman's seat, and his grandson sat on the other side. Both of them held the shaft of the carriage tightly with their hands, expressing their nervousness and excitement. "Little brother, how much longer?" The old man's body moved with the slight jolt of the carriage, and he shouted to the person on the left, "Don't worry, there is still more than an hour. The mule runs slowly, and the military horses will have already entered the city." The person who was with Do Cheong shouted to the old man. He was also looking forward to it. Although he knew about the matter of Xiao Bao and Cuckoo, they did not know him at all. It was not good to meet them without any reason. If he delayed their business and was known by others, it was very likely that he would be beaten to death. "Are they easy to talk to? I will be so scared that I can't speak properly. Little brother, you need to help me." The old man shouted again. "Okay." The second person began to feel nervous. He was worried that he could not even stand when they met later. How could he help others? Sure enough, after an hour, the five of them arrived at the city gate of Izhou. Although it was called a city gate, it was actually very dilapidated. The top of the city wall was bare, and there was a lot of grass growing everywhere. One of the city gates was missing, and the other one was open inwards. The paint on it was peeling off, and it seemed that no one had cleaned it after the rain, so there was a lot of green hair growing on it. The 3 horses and 1 carriage slowed down. There was a team in the city that was heading out. More than half of the team had already left. Do Cheong could not ask them to return, so she could only wait. The old man in the carriage looked at the city gate and city wall, and suddenly felt uneasy. He asked, "Little brother, the city is broken, and no one is repairing it? Even if the city gate is installed, it will be fine. I don't know who took the city gate away, but the remaining half should be gone soon. It's good wood, and it can be used to make boats and houses." I suddenly remembered that the missing half of the gate is in the provincial government office. It was divided into 2 pieces and used as a notice board. The person on the left side of the carriage had a good memory. He actually remembered where the city gate was. In fact, it was not cost-effective to use the city gate as a notice board. It was not a thin board, but more like a wall. The advantage of using a notice board as a notice board was that it was sturdy and durable. One could even climb a ladder to sleep on it. Do Cheong looked at the team that was leaving the city. She knew them, but their business was very big, so she did not have much contact with them. She only nodded occasionally when they met, but now she nodded as well. After nodding, she said to the old man, "Old man, there is no need to be afraid. From Izhou to the west is Tubo. If someone really attacks, they will have to attack Tubo first. Old man, where is your hometown? Did you come from Tubo? Otherwise you should know more. Is there a lot of cannibals in your hometown? It's over there. They said that we have to walk diagonally to the north. I have never been out before, so I turned a big circle while walking. I can't remember how I walked. Are you talking about the cannibals who are always shouting, la 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 la? Yes, there are some who are chanting Buddhist scriptures. Our place is very chaotic. If we walk south from the mountains, there are often people who go there and come back. This year, those who are shouting la 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 spend a lot of money to find people around us. When we come out, we see them. When we see them, I don't want to tell you." The old man who had never been out of his hometown obviously did not have a detailed geographical knowledge. He did not even know where he was. Anyway, he heard that the east was better. Since his son and daughter-in-law came first, he followed them. While they were talking, the team had already left. Do Cheong hurriedly urged the horse. When they entered the city gate, they did not encounter anyone who stopped to check or collect the entrance fee. Only poor places would do that. There was no need for that in the Tang Empire. After entering the city, Do Qiong dismounted and pulled the mule's halter. He slowed down to avoid bumping into pedestrians. Although the main road in the city was for animals to use, if you did not have special circumstances, you would be severely punished if you hit someone in the middle of the road. Only when there was a military emergency would you be killed. Who asked the person who was hit not to be careful when crossing the main road? The old man and his grandson could not see anything. The city was different from the outside. The main road was wide, and there were many tall buildings on both sides. They did not know any of the words written on the shop signs. Not for people. The old man asked in surprise. Are you talking about the residential area? Behind you, there are shops near the main road. After walking for about 20 minutes, more than a quarter of an hour, we will reach the place. Do Qiong was not a qualified tour guide. Obviously, it was his first time here, but he did not give him a good introduction, such as where there were many local specialties, unique snacks, or scenic spots. He did not say anything. The old man and his grandson could not see anything, so they did not have the mood to ask anything else. The little fellow was attracted by the fragrance of the roadside restaurant and swallowed his saliva. He had eaten a steamed bun, a bowl of wontons, and a big apple before and did not do anything, but he felt hungry again. 20 minutes passed very quickly for the old man and his grandson. Before they had seen enough, they arrived outside the Blue Sea Silver Sand restaurant. Because Izhou was one of the important cities of the Tang Empire, the Blue Sea Silver Sand restaurant was built very high. It had 4 floors and all the windows were of the same color. The first and second floors were windows directly adjacent to the street, while the third and fourth floors were outer cloisters with canopies above. People could come outside to enjoy the breeze while watching the people below. Moreover, there were many courtyards behind the main building of the restaurant, and the price was not low. People who paid a little attention to the restaurant knew that the main dish was seafood. We are here, Do Qiong said to the old man. The old man looked carefully at the restaurant and nodded. He must be a high-ranking official to be able to eat here. His family lives here, and there are other places. I don't know where they are today, so it's not wrong to ask. Do Qiong walked to the door. It was not open now, so there was no sound of people eating inside. Oh, it must cost a lot to stay here for a night, right? The old man felt that he would never be able to stay here for the rest of his life. The restaurant is owned by his family. They don't need to spend money to stay here, so they don't charge for accommodation. The man with Do Qiong explained. The old man was confused. Didn't you say that he is an official? Is he a businessman who lives here? He is an official while doing business. His family was doing business before he became an official. He is the richest family in the Tang Empire. It will be troublesome if he runs out of money one day. His family, Xiaobao, wants to suppress other businessmen in the Tang Empire. You won't understand even if I tell you. Without Xiaobao, the Tang Empire will be in chaos with the current development speed. Just remember that they are very powerful and important to us. Okay, that's good. The old man really did not understand. Do Qiong knocked on the door and said a few words to the man inside. Then she came back and said, "You can go in now. We are lucky today. Xiaobao and his family live here, so you don't have to go anywhere else." Old man, that man just now promised to find someone from the government to help you transfer your hometown to Izhou. Then you and your grandson can talk to Xiaobao and go with the people from the government office. The little guy will go to school to study, and you will go to the retirement place. You can work but can't stay idle. You can ask someone to arrange things for you to do for fun. The old man was waiting for this. It was not a big deal for him, but the most important thing was that his grandson could learn to read. He did not dare to think about it before. Learning to read was a promising person. Then he thought of Do Qiong saying that the people from the government office would come. The old man said uneasily, "We will find our own way. There is no need to trouble the government." No trouble at all. The government office in Izhou is temporarily taken over by Xiaobao and his family. There are too many idle people. They can't just eat their salary for free. They are like mules. If they don't work, they will be lazy. Old man, don't be afraid of them. If they dare to give you a hard time, You can report them to the telegraph office. Speaking of the telegraph office, you can ask them to help you send a report to Hunan province. Then you can ask the local government to help you find your son. As long as they are in Hunan province, or have been there before, and have worked there before, you don't have to worry about losing them. Do Qiong was not afraid of the officials at all. She led the old man and his grandson into the house while talking. The old man felt like he was in a dream. He could not understand why people were not afraid of officials. When he entered, he saw that it was a big empty room with only 2 tables. He was even more curious about how the restaurant usually did business. Before he could ask, Do Qiong said to him, "Many tables have been removed. We will wait here. Learn from me and raise your arm." After saying that, Do Qiong raised her arm. The 2 people with her did the same. The old man was at a loss, but the child found it very interesting. As soon as they raised their arms, someone immediately came to search them. The knife and coins carried by Do Qiong and the other 2 were also taken away. The old man and his grandson had nothing, not even a change of clothes. The old man understood. It seemed that the person he wanted to meet was relatively timid. He was afraid that they would hurt him. After sitting in the chair, Do Qiong reminded him again. When you see them later, don't get up or go forward. Otherwise, you will be easily killed in the blink of an eye. You said that Xiao Bao and Cuckoo were afraid that I would hurt them? The old man sighed helplessly. He thought that he would not dare to hurt them even if he had 100 times the courage. What Xiao Bao and Cuckoo? It's Xiaobei and the others. If it's Xiao Bao and Cuckoo, then you don't have to worry about us. According to the storyteller, the 2 of them are very powerful. That's what the storyteller said. Very powerful. Do Qiong obviously did not understand the terms used in some dialects. For example, when he called others melon, some people understood the meaning, but did not know why he called them that. Moreover, the meaning of praise and derogatory words could not be judged by the literal meaning. It needed to be judged by the person, the expression and tone of the person when speaking. Just as Do Qiong finished speaking, a voice came from behind. Yes, it's us. We can't beat the Lord. In times of emergency, safety first. This kind-looking old man is the one who wants to talk to us about important information. Haha, there's also a timid little brother. Xiaobei was the first to come out. He smiled when he saw people. His eyes looked at the old man and then at the little boy who had not seen much of the world. The little boy's face turned red and he lowered his head. He wanted to hide but did not know where to hide. Xiao Yuan and the other 8 people also came out one after another. They sized up the crowd but did not speak. The old man's cloudy eyes lit up. Along the way, he had never seen such a beautiful child. Looking at his age, he should not be much older than his grandson, but he was so much taller. It must be related to the good food he usually ate. This involves military secrets. Unrelated people, please leave. Xiaobei looked at Do Qiong and the others with a smile. Do Qiong smiled and asked, "You're killing the donkey after it has left the millstone. Where are your brother and sister?" "My brother is sleeping. Yesterday. I won't tell you what happened. My sister went to sleep after eating. We woke up and came to ask first. There will be rewards for not killing the donkey. You guys go to the back. Someone has prepared the seafood. You guys can rest and drink at the same time, okay?" Xiaobei pointed at the side door and said to Do Qiong and the others. The 3 of them could not ask for more. After greeting the old man, they went out from the side door to eat, leaving the grandfather and grandson behind to talk. Xiaobei and the others sat opposite the grandfather and grandson. Someone served them fruit juice and pastries specially prepared for the little boy. In front of the old man was tea. "Grandpa, you must have worked hard to come all the way here. Speak, we'll listen. We'll deal with what we can. If we can't, we'll look for my brother and sister. Little brother, eat quickly. Once you reach my sister, you'll be home." Xiaobei held the cup with both hands and spoke to the grandfather and grandson. The old man was very surprised. He had thought of many things. When he saw people mention Xiao Bao and Cuckoo, he thought about how to say things and not to be afraid. But no matter what, he did not expect that the people who wanted to talk to him were actually a group of children. Although this group of children looked smarter than his grandson, wore better clothes, and were beautiful, he was serious about what he wanted to say. But what he was going to say was a big deal. What was the use of a bunch of children hearing about it? The old man felt helpless in his heart. In the end, he decided to say it. In any case, he would do his best and not worry about anything else. You're called Xiaobei? Our place is very far from yours. There is a large area where there are no government offices. There are all kinds of languages. Just like what you said, we also need to go down the mountain to exchange for things to learn. We are poor, and it is not easy to eat salt. The land in the mountain is cultivated, and it does not grow well. There are times when people die when hunting. When we come down from the mountain, we walk north for a day. There is a road. On the road, people go there and then come back. We transport cloth, tea, and salt. When we come back from there, we carry other things. There are animal skins, pearls, and seeds. We can always hear people saying that some group has been killed, or that they can't come back. There are also people who catch slaves. It is very chaotic. We don't have a good life. Do you know? After the old man finished speaking, he felt that he had spoken in vain. What did a child know? Just like his grandson, it was useless even if they were 1 or 2 years older. Xiaobei and the others listened very seriously. When the old man stopped, Xiaobei blinked and frowned. He asked Xiaoyuan, "You're talking about the Silk Road that brother and sister talked about, right? Did the Tang Dynasty's caravans go there?" "Where?" Xiaoyuan couldn't figure out where the old man lived. He said that there were various languages, but did that include dialects? If it was the orthodox language of a race or religion, it would be easy, but there were many dialects. How could he guess? Are you stupid? Of course, I'm talking about the Brahmaputra River that sister mentioned before. That's because that's the only place where we haven't deployed troops within a year. The road there isn't easy to travel, and the population is small. Furthermore, it's not under our control. If we were to go up there, unless we directly pass through Tubo, it's impossible. With the two of them, old and young, do you think my patrolling guards would ignore them after seeing them? If they were to go further north, I don't think they would be able to come back alive. Look at the clothes they're wearing. Even if they weren't eaten by wild beasts, they would have frozen to death. Xiaobei said to Xiaoyuan. After that he asked Xiaozhu, "Is that Sister Xiaozhu?" Xiaozhu nodded. Yes, the location of their house isn't completely under the jurisdiction of Duoduo. It's under the jurisdiction of India. Actually, India can't control them. What conspiracy can Duoduo have over there? They shouldn't have taken a detour when transporting things. Isn't it better to walk their own path? After she finished speaking, the 9 children all looked at the old man, waiting for him to answer. The old man was stunned. He looked at the 9 children in front of him, and then looked at his grandson. He sighed and said, "It's good to be literate." At this time, the old man's grandson did not eat the pastries or drink the juice. Instead, he lowered his head deeply. Occasionally, he raised his head to look at the girls in front of him. Then, he continued to lower his head in embarrassment. He seemed very uneasy and uneasy. The old man gently shook his head. He didn't plan to compare his grandson to others anymore. Slightly relieved, he said to Xiaobei and the others, "When we came out, we heard people say that there were people shouting Allah la and Allah la, who were exchanging things with others. You guys are talking about Duoshur, right?" "Yes, there are also people called the Abbasid Caliphate, that's them. Allah is the God in their hearts, just like how Buddhists always say Amitabha. We plan to attack them immediately. As for the reason was very simple. My brother and sister said that they had something good and we needed it, so we attacked. Their territory is not small. Anyway, even if we don't attack them now, when they feel that they can attack us, they will attack us. Old grandpa, please continue. What do they want in exchange?" Xiaobei really didn't want to think of a high-sounding reason. However, the old man felt that this excuse was very good. "I'm better than you. If you have something I need, I'll snatch it from you." "That's right." Then he said, "Aren't they always there when they are exchanging things? I heard people say that they are going around exchanging things like poisonous snakes and other poisonous things. Other than exchanging things there, they also spend money to find people to help deliver them. Many of the people at the place where we came down from the mountain to exchange things were found by them. They found people and gave money to their families. They told them that they would come back after helping them deliver the things. The things they delivered were a lot of wood in the mountain. I don't think wood is very useful. I don't know what they are thinking. After the old man finished speaking, he nodded vigorously, indicating that he didn't have anything else. After speaking, the old man was no longer in a daze. It was Xiao Bei and the others turned to be in a daze. They looked at each other and saw confusion in each other's eyes. What's going on? Xiao Bei muttered. Using poison? Going into the river or smearing it on weapons? Putting poison in the river? How much would it take to poison the people who drank the water to death? How would they know when we were going to get the water? It would be gone in a rush. Could it be that they have developed the same chemical weapons as us? Xiao Yuan chimed in. Grandpa, do we have an army at the place where you live? Ah yes. Then it's useless for them to have wood. Don't they know that our artillery can easily destroy walls and camps made of wood? Xiao Yuan was talking about the previous small-scale skirmishes and training. Occasionally, the Tang Empire would send artillery support, but it wasn't at the place the old man mentioned. It was further north. It was impossible that the news couldn't be transmitted. How could the cannibals not know the power of artillery? Don't think about it. Tell brother and sister to avoid wasting time. Xiao Hai couldn't figure it out, and didn't intend to continue relying on the strength of the 9 of them to analyze. It would be very troublesome if they made a mistake. Xiao Bei nodded and said to the old man, Grandpa, you and little brother wait here. If you want to eat something, get someone to send it here. In a while, someone from the government will come here to handle the procedures for you. We will go find brother and sister first. I believe the information you sent will be very useful to us. We will reward you when we are done. Xiao Bei didn't know if it was useful or not, but he couldn't say it directly. It wouldn't be good to disappoint them. After speaking, the 9 of them got up and left to find brother and sister. Immediately, someone came to ask the grandfather and grandson what they liked to eat. He introduced more than 10 dishes for them to choose from. The old man didn't refuse. He could choose not to eat, but his grandson was hungry. And now he knew very well that Xiao Bao's family was rich, so he couldn't let his grandson suffer. He told the person who asked to arrange a few dishes casually. Then he patted his grandson's head and said, You must learn well. Did you see those 9 brothers and sisters just now? Learn well, and you can be like them. Can you bring that one called Xiao Bei home? The little boy was obviously more mature and knew a lot of things. He had ideas about Xiao Bei. The old man was shocked and comforted his grandson. There will be someone better than her in the future. She can't. You won't understand even if I tell you. They are not the same person. The little boy obviously didn't understand the difference in status. He naively thought that everyone in the world was the same. He nodded, but there was a look of disbelief in his eyes. Chapter 1234. Wang Wan naturally did not believe Zhang Xiaobao's nonsense. Not to mention that the pulverous people would not be able to think of such a trick. It would be useless even if they thought of it. International opinion. Who was the international opinion? Even if they found out, they would side with the strong country. After pondering for a while, Wang Wan said to Zhang Xiaobao, I am not very worried. We have to fight a war, and we have to find a way to achieve results. We are playing a small-scale conflict with them in the north to train our troops, and they are also training their troops. The difference is that we are paying with money to train our troops, while they are paying with their lives. We use artillery to find their weaknesses, so that the soldiers can practice the use of weapons through actual operations. They use flesh and blood to observe the deficiencies in the use of weapons when we attack, so that they can think of a way to deal with it. You sleep for a while, don't worry. When the battle starts, we will use our own methods. They won't be able to cause much trouble. A small-scale conflict is different from a full-scale attack. Wang Wan advised Zhang Xiaobao not to think about it, but she was still worried. There were only 2 points for each method, strategy and tactics. If the pulverous people could use poison to make an antidote, according to the lethality, the poison tactics they developed could directly threaten the rear of the Tang Empire, and it would be a large area. That was a strategic weapon. Throughout history, Wang Wan had not found any race or country that had achieved good results in this area. The research and use of biological poison was not as easy as it seemed, unless it was a virus, but even if the polyvirus people were given 100 years, they would not be able to research it. It was not even as good as the plague tactic that Zhang Xiaobao said jokingly. That was the simplest biological weapon, but in terms of use, one had to consider the geographical issues, otherwise it would be harmful to oneself. Since it was not a strategic weapon, it was a tactical one. There was nothing to think about this. One was the poison that was spread, and the other was smeared on the weapon. She did not believe that they could collect all the poison, and then achieve the goal of controlling it in a short time through some special training method, so that they could command the war from a distance. That was too hard to imagine. When Zhang Xiaobao heard Wang Wan say to sleep, he felt a little sleepy. He nodded, lay down, looked at the ceiling, and continued to yawn. Then he said, "Why do you think animals need to rest? How good would it be if they could work all the time? Then, our technological level can be improved even faster." A scientist who could live for 300 years was definitely more useful than 300 scientists who could live for 100 years. This was the gap in the inheritance of knowledge or experience. If we were to invent a drug that would allow people to not sleep for several days and nights, and if the soldiers were to use it, I dare say that we would be able to rule the world within 30 years, no 20 years. Go to sleep. We're talking about other people's strategies. Why do you have to talk about life and human physiology? Wang Wan felt that perhaps Zhang Xiaobao did not have enough rest, and was not in good condition. Zhang Xiaobao smiled and said, "Poisonous things are meant to affect one's physiology. They are either for us or for themselves. I'm actually not worried about them buying poisonous snakes. What I'm worried about is something else." "Chopping and transporting wood?" Wang Wan asked. "Yes," Zhang Xiaobao admitted and said, "but I'm not concerned about the wood itself. Even if they took out agarwood and Phoebe Jinan, I don't believe that our soldiers would be bribed by them, let alone some local specialty wood. I definitely think that they are chopping wood and transporting it far away just to warm up or burn it into charcoal. Do you think that there is no wood in that place? Do they have to buy it from the border? Do they need people to help transport it far away, all the way to the place?" Wang Wan's mouth moved, but then she shook her head and said, "Anyway, I don't think they are in the mood to cut down trees to create an artificial barrier at the border. It's not like it's a fire. How many people do they need to create an artificial barrier to stop the enemy from advancing on the battlefield? Hubby, do you think they are using the wood to burn the poison and produce a large amount of poisonous smog that will be blown towards us with the wind and shroud our soldiers?" Wang Wan asked, thinking that she had become stupid. If they really did as she said, how much poison would they need? Moreover, the killing effect was uncertain. It was estimated that it would not be as lethal as the pungent smell. And what if the wind changed direction? Zhang Xiaobao smiled, chuckled, and asked, "Where are the grandfather and grandson who came to report now? Where else can they be arranged? First, they eat and rest in the hall on the first floor. When the people from the government come, they will be handed over to the government and let them be in charge. They came all the way here. Even if they are a diplomat from a hostile country, we have to treat them well, let alone a citizen of the Tang Empire. This is not to show grace, but to give myself a shot of confidence. When I express my magnanimity, I give myself a hint, telling myself that I have confidence and don't need to deal with the diplomat. Otherwise, it will be cowardice." Wang Wan poured herself a cup of coffee as she spoke. She glanced at Zhang Xiaobao on the bed and asked, "Are you still sleeping? Can you rest by lying there and talking and thinking about things?" "I'm not sleeping. I'm just lying down for a while. The mental fatigue is gone. I'm just sleeping. That's why people say that people always have something to cling to. The sleepy people cling to the bed, the lonely people cling to the home, and the people who go further away cling to the country. Those who say this place is my home are probably helpless. I guess what they really want to say is that the moon is the brightness of the hometown. It's not easy to be a wanderer. For example, the Song of the Seven Suns that they once sang. The lyrics are so well written." Zhang Xiaobao was still lying down and talking to Wang Wan. Wang Wan was confused by Zhang Xiaobao's words. Now you can either sleep or go to the kitchen to see what you want to eat tonight. Don't be poetic in front of me. To be honest, your literary skills were taught by me later. You are still far from it. I'm not poetic. I'm emotional and expressing my attitude. I hate people who live on the border the most. You say that they are from our country, but they occasionally feel close to the other side. You say that they are from the other side, but their location is within our country's territory. It can't be said that there is no good person among them, but they don't have much attachment to their country. They will choose based on the strength of both sides and the attitude that they treat them. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not patriotism. That's waiting to see who can offer the highest price. Back then, there were many places that were under our control in history. Later on, didn't they all establish their own countries? Moreover, they weren't close to us. Zhang Xiaobao's words seemed to carry a lot of resentment. Wang Wan nodded in understanding. She felt that things were indeed as Xiaobao said. Back then, there were a circle of small countries around our country that had all kinds of inexplicable entanglements with our own country. If you directly deny it from the perspective of ethnicity, and the people who originally belonged to the same ethnic group became a minority in the country, denying it was denying your own people. But if you acknowledge them in this aspect, they won't acknowledge you. There are too many problems mixed in between. You have to rope them in, but you also have to keep a distance. AI. With a sigh, Wang Wan said, "Then what's your purpose in telling me this now?" The historical reason in the past was that our country ruled in name, but in reality, no one was there. We couldn't treat them the same as the people in our country. Yes, and you clearly know that they don't acknowledge your country, but you still have to express your acknowledgement of their attitude at the crucial moment. There have been anti-Chinese actions in various places. The Chinese who are bullied in other people's land don't acknowledge you. If you don't help, you are pushing away the Chinese who acknowledge you. If you help, they will think that you are a busybody. It's a mess and you can't explain it clearly. Then, whenever other people are anti-Chinese, you have to stand on the Chinese side. Isn't it cowardly? Isn't it sullen? Zhang Xiaobao sat up from the bed and sighed with Wang Wan. It's a little uncomfortable. According to you, we should now. Wang Wan changed the topic again. What we should consider now is, once the multi-cannibals push the people who are mixed up in the border to the front line, and then they follow behind, should we fire or retreat? Zhang Xiaobao finally said the problem. Wang Wan was shocked, and her eyes widened. Then she said, "You mean what they want is not the wood at all, but the existence of the grandfather and grandson in our country's territory? Do they want to push our people to the front like the minefields in the movies we've seen before?" Yes, they want to cook Lu Bang's father, Xiangyu. Lu Bang can say, "You cook my father, right? Remember to bring me the best piece of roasted meat. I want to taste it." But we can't do that. The people who can help transport the wood are all local strong young people. Behind them are their children, parents, and brothers and sisters. That's why I said it's very difficult. If we don't fire, the enemy will advance. If we fire, we will hit them. Then the multi-cannibals will spread the news to their families. This is the most difficult thing for me. If it were the people of Sanshui County, I believe that when they know the situation they are facing, they will definitely turn around and fight the enemy, even if they are unarmed. They will give us an accurate attitude, that is, they would rather die in battle than to implicate us. At that time, we can. I know. Wang Wan continued, we can let the artillery fire cut off the enemy's contact with the rear, then send snipers to snipe at a fixed point, and immediately order the people in front to immediately put up their bayonets and rush over to our people. But as you said, they are not the people of Sanshui County. They are people that even the government can't send. They can't turn around and launch a desperate attack. They will wait and hate, not only hate the multi-cannibals but also hate us. Whether to fire or not, it's a difficult choice for us. If we fire, we will lose the people in that area. If we don't fire, they will be treated as cannon fodder, but they will feel that there is hope for survival, and they will help the multi-cannibals to charge at us. It's too cowardly. Wang Wan didn't think that Zhang Xiaobao was talking nonsense, but thought that the possibility was very, very, very high. Chapter 1235. The room fell silent for a moment. Zhang Xiaobao sat on the bed while Wang Wan leaned on the table. The two of them were thinking of a solution. It was obvious why the duo cannibals asked the local youths to help transport the wood. There was a large area of forest there. If they wanted wood, they might as well ask experienced people to cut it down. At the same time, they didn't need a large number of people to go from afar. Obviously, they wanted to trick the hostages and put them in front of the army. Let's see what the Tang army can do. Wang Wan knew very well that the duo cannibals wouldn't be stupid enough to tie the hostages up. The rope was very long, and if the duo cannibals controlled it, there would be enough space between the two groups of hostages. That was something that happened in movies. If that was really the case, they only needed to adjust the shooting angle of the machine gun team, and the hostages in front would lose their function as hostages. Furthermore, they would be successfully rescued. They would definitely send out suicide squad members to carry the hostages forward. Even if they sent out snipers, they wouldn't be able to catch them. Actually, in some cases, we can think that there are no hostages. Just treat them as consumables in the war. At most, we can say that it was an accident. Retreating isn't a good idea. Just fire. Zhang Xiaobao rubbed his face with his hands. It was a bad idea, but at the same time, it was the right idea. How could there be no deaths in war? How many people died in the world's 1 or 2 wars? Not to mention the civilians. Wang Wan shook her head. She didn't want to attack the hostages, even if she had a way to solve the problem of the people's hearts. Send someone over to ask who was hired and tell the families of the hostages that they were tricked into becoming cannon fodder. Tell them how sinister the enemy was, and how dangerous the battlefield was. Then find a random reason to make the helplessness of firing the cannon into a movie. Create a strong public opinion, and give more benefits to the locals. Basically, no one would suspect that the Tang Empire deliberately fired the cannon. Zhang Xiaobao, who had just said that they would kill the hostages, spoke again. I am very disgusted by the duo cannibals. Just fight the war properly. Why play tricks? Even if they win the war in the end, isn't it an unfair victory? Wang Wan still didn't open her mouth. Her distress was written all over her face. She was pondering what method she could use to rescue him. Otherwise, wouldn't she be admitting that she and Xiaobao didn't have the ability to face such difficulties? Most of the time, I treat this life as a game. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan stayed silent for more than an hour. Seeing that it was getting late through the window, Zhang Xiaobao got up and went to the kitchen to cook. So I didn't care about anything. But I realized that I was wrong. It wasn't that I mistakenly treated this life as a game, but that I couldn't care less. If we had truly become a person of this era, we would have made the decision to directly attack in the current situation, because we had no other choice. Only when we were helpless in the current situation would we truly consider ourselves as a person of this era. That was a form of surrender. Any successful ruler was actually playing a game, enjoying the process, and then obtaining victory. When our bodies and minds were completely integrated into the era, that was the moment when we were powerless. So we never gave in to anything. We always had to achieve our goal. No matter how difficult it was, we had you all the way. While speaking, Zhang Xiaobao had already walked outside and stood at the door. Wang Wan stood up, smiled and said, "Yes, from the beginning, we despised everything in this life. We were immortals. We were geniuses. Not only were we geniuses now, but we were also geniuses at the top of the pyramid in our time. So we cared more about the improvement of the living standards of the people, the happiness of the children, the dignity of the Tang people, and the little things around us. We were playing a grand game, just like the game of Monopoly. We hoped to take every step well. We firmly believed that if we two geniuses worked together, many people would still tremble even in our era. But in terms of conspiracy and intrigue, I trust you more. I believe that you, who could kill a prime minister of a country, can't think of a way to solve a simple hostage problem. What do you want to eat tonight?" After speaking, Wang Wan also came to the door and stood beside Zhang Xiaobao, meaning that the two of them would cook dinner together. Zhang Xiaobao lifted Weiwei's arm. When Wang Wan tacitly reached out to hold his arm, he raised his head, puffed out his chest, and walked toward the kitchen. "What do you think of making braised potatoes? The kind with lard. It's the first time I've heard that braised potatoes are made with lard. Not to mention cannibals, even Xiaobei and the others won't eat them. After a little cooling, the reverse taste of the potatoes and the meaty taste of the pork will make people refuse to eat these two things from now on. Wang Wan also raised her head. As the two of them talked, they arrived at the door of the kitchen. There were already cooks busy inside, because Zhang Xiaobao couldn't cook for everyone. He was only responsible for dinner for his family. Seeing the two of them come over, someone quickly went to check on the single room inside. Seeing that no one else was there, he smiled and said to Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan, "Young master, you're here. Seeing that it's already late, we were just about to ask you if you'd like us to do it. I didn't expect you to come with the little miss. Do your thing. I'll see what dishes there are. Don't worry about us." Zhang Xiaobao nodded at him, and then began to look for things on the shelves in the kitchen's ingredient warehouse with Wang Wan. "This is good. Onion. Ha, in fact, I've never liked to eat it. And before we came here, our Tang people didn't like to eat it, so it wasn't spread here. Later we came over by sea. How many detours did we take?" Zhang Xiaobao picked up a few onions and sniffed. He didn't smell anything pungent. There was skin on the outside. Wang Wan took it and put it in the basket that she had just picked up at the door. She said, "It tastes good to fry beef and mutton. It's better than green onions. The onions will shrivel up when they're fried. Then count them in tonight. And tomatoes. You'll plant a lot of them today, right? At least they can be sold in several big cities in summer. And chili. Let's have some of them. Good tomatoes are really delicious." Zhang Xiaobao picked out chili and tomatoes. He also put the beef packed in cans on the other side of the shelf into Wang Wan's basket. After choosing a few more pieces of beef and mutton, Zhang Xiaobao began to cook. Wang Wan said that she would help. Seeing that the dishes Zhang Xiaobao chose were simple and didn't need fillings and side dishes, she could only stand by and watch. She was closer to each other and gave each other warmth. She wanted to think of a good idea as soon as possible and not directly shoot the hostages. Otherwise, in order to win the war, the hostages would undoubtedly die. But after the war, the two of them would feel uncomfortable and regret. Because the dishes were simple, Zhang Xiaobao made them very quickly. There were cucumber strips that were just marinated, the sauce that he had mixed, a few washed vegetables, steamed rice and a tomato sauce or juice. After these were done, he began to roast the meat. He cut the meat into small pieces and put them on the iron grate to roast. After a while, the fragrance floated out. He waited for the rice in the pot to be cooked. He heated up the sauce just now and poured it on the rice. Well, there are meat and vegetables. It's nutritious. Because the staple food is a little greasy, it's good for digestion with cucumber. Help take it out. Xiaobei and the others are probably hungry. I didn't hear that they ate any snacks in the afternoon. Zhang Xiaobao divided all the dishes into plates and placed them on 2 large trays. He invited Wang Wan to take one out each. Wang Wan looked at the dishes, her head full of doubts. Smelling it, it was fragrant, but she didn't seem to like it. She guessed that her younger siblings might not be happy eating it either. The two carried the trays to the family room. Xiaobei and the others were already sitting and waiting for the dishes to be served. Each person had a plate of rice, but there were no chopsticks, no knives and forks. The 9 children, who were used to using tableware, couldn't start for a while. Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan sat separately, so that they could help their younger siblings at any time. "Eat, don't just look. Remember to use your right hand," Zhang Xiaobao said to his younger siblings with a smile. After he finished speaking, he stretched out his right hand and began to grab the rice on the plate. He quickly stuffed it into his mouth and said, "Try not to get your hand in your mouth when you eat. This is a way to eat special dishes." Xiaobei showed her hand and waved it back and forth in front of her eyes. She looked at her brother and found that her brother was not joking. So she sighed exaggeratedly and began to eat. She picked the side dishes that were not hot. The other children followed suit. Anyway, it was just eating. They believed that their brother would not harm them. Zhang Xiaobao ate a few mouthfuls, picked up the vegetables and dipped them in the sauce and stuffed them into his mouth. He chewed, picked up a cucumber stick and dipped it in the sauce as well. Xiaobei gradually adapted after eating it a few times. She liked to challenge new food cultures. In the past, she had eaten many kinds of food specially made for her by her brother. Although the salad on the plate in front of her was different from the steak she used to eat, it was still edible. Wang also ate. After eating about 10 mouthfuls, she stopped and looked at Zhang Xiaobao and said, "Why do I feel like this is Indian curry rice?" Definitely not. Indian curry rice has more seasonings than what we eat now. It is almost a hodgepodge of seasonings. If you want to eat it, I will make it for you tomorrow at noon. Anyway, I have nothing to do. Let me tell you, curry tastes the best when it is made by someone like me who has sold 13 spices. It is not an exaggeration to say that very few Indians can beat me. In the end, they became lazy and bought ready-made curry powder. Many people do not know how to make their own curry powder. The faster the times develop, the more traditions are lost. Sigh. They always say that they are a strong country. I am worried about them. Eat it. This is an authentic Arab diet. I plan to carry it forward. Part of it is chili, part of it is not chili. Because I don't know if they can immediately adapt to chili rice. We have a canning factory here, right? Yes, we do. Otherwise, many things that can't be directly transported to Beijing and other places will be a problem to preserve freshness. After dinner tonight, I will ask them to process this kind of canned food. Zhang Xiaobao was not afraid of burning his hands at all. He ate very quickly and could talk while eating. Brother, when you have new things, don't you want to give them to our inner courtyard first? Xiaobei felt that they could eat now, so he did not ask to change the food. But he was very confused. Zhang Xiaobao shook his head and said, "This is not for our inner courtyard. This is prepared for those who lack virtue for 8 lifetimes. I want to add enough barbituric acid, which is the ingredient of the sedative medicine sold in our medical hall now. These bastards are playing tricks on me. I'll let them see what a trick that's impossible to guard against is. I'll let them like to eat this kind of thing first. I'll put in something with caffeine and poppy water. When they're addicted to it, I'll change the ingredients." Zhang Xiaobao needed a way to vent. After cursing fiercely, he continued to eat. After Wang Wan heard this, her eyes lit up. Then, she lowered her head and began to think. Xiaobei wiped his mouth with the napkin in front of his chest and reached out to grab some rice. He stopped there and nodded. He supported his brother and said, "The people who eat more are indeed hateful. They clearly have good resources in their country, but not only do they not sell them to us at a low price, they also don't allow us to go and pick them ourselves. Don't they think about who we are? We are the powerful and highly skilled Tang Empire. We shoulder the responsibility of the beautiful future of the entire human race. If they eat more and stop us, they are going against all of humanity and making things difficult for the world. All right. There are no outsiders here. Put away your tricks." Xiao Yuan could not stand it anymore. How thick-skinned was this person who said such words? Xiaobei, who had found an opportunity to practice his diplomatic speech, was exposed by Xiao Yuan. His face turned red and his body twisted a little. He said embarrassedly, "I'm used to it. From this, you can see how hard it is for me to be a diplomat. I have to pay attention to my image at all times, including my facial expressions and body movements. Do you think it's easy for me? But even so, sometimes people don't understand. They say that I'm just saying clichés, and that it's no different from not saying anything. They say that I repeat the same thing over and over again. Is that really the case? Xiao Yuan, tell me." Xiao Yuan shook his head. "No, definitely not. Every word is changed differently, and the meaning expressed is also different. It may seem like clichés, but if you think about it carefully, you'll realize that there's a lot of meaning behind it. Actually, I've said everything that needs to be said. It's just that many people are not educated enough and can't keep up with your rhythm." Although Xiao Yuan did not like to hear Xiaobei say diplomatic words in front of him, he supported Xiaobei. That was a form of wisdom. Unless there were special circumstances, one had to be ambiguous when expressing one's meaning. Otherwise, if one said something wrong, it would leave a flaw for the enemy. How could ordinary people understand the skills of a diplomat and the profoundness of diplomatic words? That's right. Xiaobei freed up his left hand and patted Xiao Yuan's shoulder in praise. He looked like he was saying, You're not bad, kid. You guys live in such a big place. Your farming skills are not good, and your industrial skills are not good. Your country has a lot of resources, but your military force is not as good as ours. If we don't fight you, who do we fight? After thinking for a while, Wang Wan smiled and said to the 9 little guys, "Tell me the truth. Do you like eating the current food? If you don't like it, then don't eat it. Ask your brother to make it again for you guys. Tell me, in order to deal with the poly-eater, he has to make things difficult for us in terms of food, right?" The 9 of them looked at each other and instantly communicated with their eyes. Then Xiaobei said, "Sigh. Let's just make do with it. Fortunately, it was made by my brother. I reckon that if the poly-eater made it themselves, I would have a stomach problem. In the past, we said that Japanese dishes were special, so when my brother made them, we felt that they were not bad. In the end, when we ate the food made by the Japanese, we finally understood that what was good was not the food, but our brother. So we believe that my brother's plan will definitely succeed. With the delicious handheld rice, it will be like eating for the people on the grassland. The poly-eater will go crazy when they see it." After Xiaobei said this, his eyes suddenly showed doubt. He asked, "Brother, are we bored? We have cannons and bullets. Can't we just shoot? Why do we have to use a trick on the poly-eater?" The other 8 little guys listened to the movements of their hands at the same time and looked up. This matter started with the grandfather and grandson who came before. Your brother and I didn't guess what the use of collecting the poison was, but the transport would behind them already knew. They wanted to drive our people away. Facing our gunfire, your brother and I were worried sick. But now, your brother has thought of a very good plan. First, send the poly-eater canned food with stimulants for a few days, and then find a suitable opportunity to give them canned food with sleeping ingredients in it. Then we will solve the hostage problem. Now we have to send people to all our borders and bring the people there to a safe place. Your brother and I plan to play the game more beautifully. We don't plan to use the most helpless method." Wang Wan stared at Zhang Xiaobao as she spoke, her eyes smiling like crescent moons. A professional was indeed a professional. The quality of a professional swindler never needed to be questioned. He could actually think of a plan in such a short time. People who often schemed against others could indeed face anyone's schemes at any time. After this plan was implemented, there was no need to worry about the poly-eater not falling for it because there would be a supporting operation. Xiaobao didn't need to say this. He already knew this. The poly-eater tricked the hostages at the border between India and the Tang Empire. Of course, they wouldn't use them on the battlefield in India. Instead, they would move to the place where they stationed troops in the north. Because the information transmission technology was not advanced enough, they wouldn't know that the war would start tomorrow. They would definitely travel slowly. After 10 days to half a month of travel, they would contact the people at the place where they were beaten. Then, they would abandon the useless wood and move forward lightly. They could wait for the first few days before they met up, and send special forces to destroy their supplies. Then they would send troops to the front to stop them. They would push out the hostages, and the interceptors would use snipers to take out a few of them before retreating in panic, leaving behind some supplies. After losing their supplies, they could only check what the Tang Empire left behind, and let the hostages try it. After eating, they found that not only were they not poisoned, but they also became more energetic. In the process of praising the Tang Empire's superb technology, they ate with all their might. At the same time, they secretly thought that their own people were smart. This happened a few times. On the night before they said that they were going to regroup with the scattered and regrouped troops, they would take advantage of the time when they were relaxed to give them a can of sleeping pills. While they were sleeping soundly, the special forces would come out and kill them. Everything was solved. Of course, this was their own idea. The specific implementation would depend on the situation at the time. They believed that there would be no problems in general. The hostage rescue plan was like this. No one could guarantee a perfect success, but having a solution and not having a solution were two different things. The 9 little guys pondered and figured out what was going on. So bad. Can't they just fight properly with us? Why do they have to play tricks? I despise such enemies the most. Xiaobei once again spoke in the name of justice. Eat it. All is fair in war. Xiao Yuan's admiration for his brother and sister was indescribable. When they went to meet the grandfather and grandson, before they could figure out what the information would be used for, his brother and sister had already thought of a way to deal with it. As expected, he had to continue learning. After relaxing, Wang Wan decided to torture Zhang Xiaobao on the bed. Then, she proposed to hold a large-scale singing and dancing performance tomorrow. As for starting a war, it seemed to have nothing to do with her. The capital was one step ahead of Izhou to understand the sunset at dusk. Li Longji had no idea that something had just happened in front of him that made things difficult for Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan. He also seemed to have forgotten about the war and walked leisurely on the road to the zoo. Gao Lishir followed beside him and described the progress of the construction in the palace. They would be able to enter in August. At that time, they would have a new mood in the new office environment. Your Majesty, Xiaobao hasn't sent the plan yet. It needs to be published in the newspaper tomorrow morning. Is it urgent? After Gao Lishir finished talking about the construction, he talked about something more important. With a faint smile on his face, Li Longji walked leisurely with his hands behind his back. From time to time, he glanced at the tourists passing by. Some tourists hurried by, while some recognized the emperor. At first, they were surprised, and then they nervously looked around. On the surface, there were more than 30 tourists following him. But who knew how many were secretly following him? The tourists who recognized the emperor very tacitly made the same choice. No matter which direction they went before and what animals they wanted to see, at this time, they all chose to walk the same path as the emperor to see the same animals. Moreover, they followed at a place that was neither too far nor too close. They didn't want the emperor to talk to them personally. They just thought that protecting the emperor was what they should do. At the same time, they secretly complained. You don't take more guards with you when you go out. Don't you know that you are going to war? We won't hurt you. What if there are enemies in the crowd? You are cheating us. Many people thought so. While complaining, they were also proud. The emperor dared to walk around in person, which meant that he had a clear conscience. He was confident that he had done what he should do and that the people wouldn't assassinate him. He was a good emperor. Only an emperor with a guilty conscience would be afraid to face the people. Therefore, they had to ensure the emperor's safety. If he was killed and replaced with a bad emperor, how would they live? Therefore, more and more people gathered around Li Longji. They were all vigilant. When they looked at the people around them, they felt that they were enemies and were ready to attack at any time. Li Longji also noticed the situation and smiled warmly at the people around him. He didn't respond to Gao Lishir's words. Instead, he looked at the place in front of him and asked, "Is that the place where koalas are raised?" Gao Lishir helplessly replied, "That's right. Your Majesty, look at the special trees. They are eucalyptus trees. Many of them were transplanted here, but many of them died. However, the merchants who went out to sea would send more than 10 live eucalyptus trees every month to donate to the zoo. Therefore, the zoo has always had eucalyptus trees." This subject was once interested and saw a merchant who was donating eucalyptus trees. I asked him why he spent so much effort and cost to transport the eucalyptus trees over and didn't charge any fees. He said that his identity required him to come to the capital often, and he found that the children liked to carry koalas the most. He said that the name of the koalas was directly translated from the pronunciation of the locals. He said that since the children liked them, he would help raise the koalas. He said that when he went out personally, or when his caravan went out, what he felt the most was not the beautiful scenery of other places, but the warmth of the Great Tang. The people of the outside world were never as peaceful as the Great Tang. More often than not, there was war and the displacement of tribes. When traveling, sick children and old people would be abandoned. As long as they didn't seem to be healthy, they would lose the opportunity to follow the caravan. Every time they encountered such a situation, they would help as much as they could and arrange things for them to do in the various camps they had set up. However, he said that it was because he felt pity in his heart, but he lamented the plundering between the people of the region. Thus, he felt that he needed to cherish his country more. Every time, he would painstakingly bring back many things that didn't have much commercial value. He wanted to contribute to his country and seek a trace of peace in his heart. Gao Lisher rubbed his eyes. He was clearly moved by the merchants and also proud of his great Tang. Many years ago, he didn't even dare to imagine that the great Tang would one day be like this. This was true strength, not the strength of the past when he was always fighting others. Back then, the strength came from the will of the emperor. Now the strength came from an inexplicable strength of the whole. Just like how the vegetation was flourishing, one could feel the arrival of spring from any place. The current Great Tang was like an endless sea. Its strength didn't lie in how high the waves were on the surface, but in the surging waves beneath the water. And this powerful center. When Gao Lisher thought of this, he looked at the emperor beside him, and then turned his gaze to the far west. The two people there were the root of this strength. Li Longji also turned his head to the west. He seemed to be looking at the setting sun, but also seemed to be looking at the red sunset. Lisher, go and find that koala who got sick because no one carried him. Bring him over here. We want to see how this little fellow is doing now. Li Longji ordered Gao Lisher, who thought that he was going to talk about Xiao Bao and Cuckoo. Gao Lisher froze for a moment, then nodded. He quickly walked to the front and negotiated with several people. When he returned, he brought a little girl with him. She was around 12 or 13 years old, and she was struggling to hold a very cute koala bear. Of course, she was also very cute. Her hair was spread out, most of it falling on her shoulders, with only a few strands floating by her forehead. There was a large pink bow on her head, and she was wearing a white princess dress. Perhaps because she was afraid of the cold weather, her parents had put on long, flesh-colored stockings for her. On her feet were a pair of red leather boots with cartoon dog decorations on the front. She was holding Koala, and Koala also stretched out an arm to wrap around her neck. The other hand was holding a eucalyptus tree branch, and from time to time it would take a bite. Okay, you're only allowed to hold it for a while. I held it first. You're not allowed to snatch it and not return it to me. Little Doo is the most willing to let me hold it. When he walked closer, Li Longji heard what the little girl said to Gao Lisher and couldn't help but laugh. Gao Lisher nodded helplessly and promised. When the little girl stood in front of Li Longji, she reluctantly handed over the little Doo in her mouth. Her eyes were fixed on Li Longji, as if she was afraid that the other party would snatch her toy and not get it back. She had a hard time holding it, but Li Longji was much more relaxed. It was not heavy, and it was not easy to make it too heavy. Koala was very easy to talk to. As long as someone was holding it, it didn't care who was holding it. When it was wrapped in Li Longji's arms, it felt that this person did not need to be hugged, so it grabbed the eucalyptus tree branch with both hands and slowly ate it. It was Li Longji's first time holding a koala, and he finally understood why so many people liked this kind of small animal. It was really too fun, just like holding a quiet child. It's furry and looks like the cloth dolls sold by Xiaobei and the others. Those who don't know would really treat it as a dead object. Let me see, as expected, with makeup, someone will hold it. Lisher, why do you think koalas like to be held by people? Li Longji looked at the little animal in his arms and asked Gao Lisher. Your Majesty, not all koalas like to be held by people. Wild ones are not good. They have to be in contact with them for a period of time. There is a comparison between people, and it is the same between animals. It sees others of its kind being held by people, but it is not held by anyone, so it naturally gets sick. Gao Lisher explained. It's like raising a dog. You are good to one dog, but the other dogs are not comfortable. Girl, its name is Little Doo? Li Longji lowered his head and said to the little girl who brought the koala. The little girl did not answer immediately, but kept blinking her big eyes, looking at Li Longji in surprise, then turned to look at Gao Lisher and asked Gao Lisher. What did you call him just now? Your Majesty? Gao Lisher nodded. Uncle Emperor, you should have said so earlier. If I had said earlier that Uncle Emperor wanted to hold Little Doo, I would have already sent it over. Uncle Emperor, it's actually not called Little Doo, its original name was Tang, but Peng saw that its eyes were sunken in a lot, and its color was not good, so he called it Little Doo. When I was angry, I called it Little Doo Uncle Emperor, who gave it a good name. The little girl seemed to be very smart, guessing Li Longji's identity from a name, and did not forget to ask for the emperor's support. Little Dudu is good, very good, Li Longji said. Not to mention that this name was very cute, even if it was unpleasant, he had to follow the little girl's words. Otherwise, what if he made her cry? I've always thought so. When I go back, I'll tell Peng that the name was decided by Uncle Emperor. If he dares to disagree, I'll find the authorities to arrest him and punish him for 10 days, no 5 days. He won't be able to eat anything from my precious candy house. The little girl was very happy that she had obtained the emperor's approval. In the future, she could bully the second fatty that she spoke of. From the clothes on the little girl's body and her words, Li Longji understood that she was not born in an ordinary family, and was definitely a child of an official. If she was from a merchant family, then her family was too powerful, because the bow on her head was specially made by Xiao Bei, and the others as a gift to the officials of the capital. To be able to get the bow from the hands of an official, what price would a merchant have to pay? The brackets of this bow were made of gold, and the sparkling things inlaid on them were diamonds. It was very expensive to make, and the production was very small. Each bow had a number on it, and the design was also unique. All right, I will definitely punish him. If he dares to say that he is not called Little Dudu, how old is this girl? What's your surname? Li Longji said with a smile. 11 years old. Do you think I look 13 years old? I specially dressed up, because little fatty is 12 years old, and he calls me little sister. I'm not young anymore, so I become 13 years old, and when he sees me like this, it's very funny. My face is like that, just like that. Do you understand? The little girl said with a smile. I know. Is it like that? Li Longji cooperated and made a depressed expression, causing the little girl to repeatedly nod her head. Li Longji's eyes reddened as he looked at the little lass's appearance. He thought of the past. In the past, most of the girls her age were already married, and there were even more who were engaged. They had to mature early and couldn't enjoy the childhood that belonged to her like the one in front of him. Now, if a girl wanted to marry, she had to be over 18 years old. More often than not, it was according to an unintentional requirement, which was to have children at 20 years old. During this period of time, they could go to school, play, and have countless stories waiting for them. The people who caused all of this did not seem to have a childhood. They left their childhood to others, and they had to learn many skills from elementary school. They had to govern a region, lead troops, manage countless industries, and participate in the imperial court's orders. If you ask where your heart is, you will obtain the world's love. Weiwei Li Longji shook his head and smiled again. He looked at the little girl in front of him, and felt that she was so happy. She could play to her heart's content. While the people who could make her like this were planning a grand war. Uncle Emperor, my surname is Liang, and my father is the county magistrate of Wanyan County. The little girl didn't know what her Uncle Emperor meant, but she remembered that her Uncle Emperor had asked her 2 questions. Li Longji nodded. Oh, your Uncle Emperor knows that your father is Liang Yudao, the county magistrate who always says, listen to Xiaobao, right? Yes, that's right. Uncle Emperor, you remember my father. My father is from Jianjia, right? Your Uncle Emperor must remember everyone who comes out of that place. Tell Uncle Emperor. How has your father been recently? Li Longji helped the little girl solve the problem of not being able to remember. Jianjia was a legendary academy, which was even more powerful than the Imperial College, the highest academy of the Tang Empire. Even the people of Jixian Academy did not dare to say that they could compete with all the students there. The little girl was happy at first, but then she shook her head. It's not good. In the past half-month, my father has been sighing and saying that there is a big contradiction between the speed of economic development and the proportion of people who have resources. He has said it many times, but my mother and I don't understand. We just remember it. Uncle Emperor, you are very, very powerful. Can you tell me what is going on? I went home and told my father that my father has lost weight. My mother advised my father not to think too much, but your father is from Jianjia. It is impossible for him not to think about it. It has become his instinct. Can you go back today? If you can, tell your father that tomorrow, Everything will be fine tomorrow. Xiao Bao and Cuckoo are also waiting for the sun to rise. Li Longji said to the little girl. Even if he did not know what would be in tomorrow's newspaper, he believed that the news would come in a while. Otherwise, it would be too late to print the newspaper and spread it to various places. Chapter 1236. The next day, early in the morning, all of the branches of the Great Tang newspaper company delivered the day's newspaper to the homes of the subscribers as quickly as possible. The notice board of the Yamen was also updated with the day's new content. Almost all of the Great Tang citizens acted as usual, not noticing anything amiss. However, when more people finished reading the newspaper, a portion of them noticed a problem with it, and the entire Great Tang began to fall into chaos. In Hanyuan Hall, Li Longji sat upright while the officials stood by his side, listening to the contents of the newspaper. From today onwards, the royal court will add a new policy. First, the tax on farmers, such as the tax on farmers and the poll tax, will be replaced with currency. All farmers will have to sell their crops to raise money. When the first clause was read out, the officials who were qualified to attend the royal court frowned as they pondered over the function of this clause. After a moment of contemplation, most of them found that it didn't have much of an effect. At most, the grain that had been handed over previously would be converted into money, and the farmers would have to sell their crops themselves. Li Longji narrowed his eyes, and after a moment of contemplation he nodded. The reporter continued to read. Second, all cultivators are allowed to work together with other cultivators in the surrounding area. All cultivators are allowed to work together in groups of 100 households, or in villages. A leader is chosen, and the members of the group are the owners of all the land. The leader can choose two types of farming. The first is to negotiate the distribution of the crops. That is to say, the owner of the land will reach an agreement with the leader, and the variety of crops to be farmed each year will be decided by the leader. The second is to lease the land. That is to say, the leader will lease the land of all the farmers and hire the owner of the land to work in the fields. All decisions will be made by the leader, and they will be protected by the corresponding laws. The moment these words were said, the officials burst into an uproar. They finally understood the function of the first clause. The first clause was to serve the second clause. After a transaction, the amount of money one would earn would depend on the price set at the time of the transaction. If one sold for more money, one would make a profit. If one sold for less money, one would make a loss. All of the risks would be shifted to the owner of the land. The next day, there was another way of land acquisition. If one chose the first option of the second option, the owner of the land would have to bet with the team leader. They would bet that the team leader's decision this year was correct. Although it was said that it could not be changed, in fact, once the seeds were planted, they could not be changed even if they wanted to. It would delay the growth of the crops. If one were to choose the second option, the owner of the land would avoid the risk of selling their own grain. They would pay for the land and receive two portions of money. One portion would be the rent for the land, and the other portion would be the income from labor. There were two risks in the process. One was the risk of not being hired, and the other was the risk of their own income being reduced when the price of grain was high. If it was completely up to the team leader to decide, the team leader was likely to exclude those who were not good at farming. These people would only receive a portion of the income from the lease of the land, but they themselves would be unemployed. I don't agree. Without waiting for the person reading the newspaper to continue, Zhang Juling stepped out and said bluntly. He had a good relationship with the Zhang family and the Wang family, but he could not let his personal relationship go to waste. Li Longji put the microphone to his mouth and said, Minister Zhang, stand down. Today's court assembly is not to hear whether you agree or not. It is to let you listen carefully and act accordingly. Today is different from the past. Everything that is done, starting from me, to the head of the secretariat, to the lower ministries, you only need to cooperate and are not allowed to question. However, Yuan Qianyao, who was nearby, did not agree. He stood out forcefully and asked loudly, Your Majesty, I don't know why this policy was not brought out to discuss with us first before coming to a conclusion. Why did it have to be passed today? Bring it out to discuss? Didn't you need to discuss for a long time? Can you guarantee that not a single piece of information will be leaked? Do you know what the consequences will be once the nobles of the Great Tang know about this policy in advance? Minister Yuanqing, I ask you, do you know the situation that our dynasty is facing now? Li Longji threw out a few questions consecutively and waited for Yuan Qianyao to give a reply. Yuan Qianyao pondered for a moment and said loudly, Your Majesty, our dynasty is now filled with the benevolence of the emperor. The people are of one mind, commerce is connected, agriculture is flourishing, and the army. Speak frankly, I don't like to listen to people talk for a long time without saying anything practical. No matter how much you flatter, the problems that should exist will not be solved. Li Longji interrupted Yuan Qianyao's words. All the officials, including Zhang Zhong, sighed secretly. They felt that His Majesty had been influenced by Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan to be too utilitarian. There must be practical returns for his efforts. If not, he would definitely not waste his time. Yuan Qianyao coughed lightly and changed his way of speaking. Your Majesty, our dynasty's national treasury is now filled with money. This year's national treasury can't be used up just based on the budget. As the agriculture temple has been vigorously researching crops, the cultivators all over the country know how to be flexible when farming. Furthermore, they use fertilizers and pesticides. The crop output has more than doubled. In addition, the roads are well repaired, the railways are connected, the caravans are organized into a large scale, and the small products developed by the Ministry of Works help the people increase the efficiency of manual labor. The situation is very good. Also, in terms of education, many people spontaneously learn to read with their children at night. There are countless schools all over the country, and they can participate in the work of heaven and earth. Everything is very good. Good, I naturally know that there are good aspects. However, in the way of heaven and earth, there must be a yin and a yang. There must be a disadvantage to every advantage. I also know that our Tang Empire's military is strong. Our weapons are advanced and our morale is high. We can fight whoever we want. However, I am asking about the disadvantages of the advantages. When Li Longji said this, he was very proud. Especially in the past 2 years, the Ministry of Works had developed a lot of research results. For example, pesticides and fertilizers, as well as the improvements made by the agriculture temple. The development of the entire country was like flying. No matter which place was affected by the disaster, as long as the people were fine. As for the money and food that the people lost, the imperial court would directly make up for it. Furthermore, it wasn't like in the past. When the disaster struck, the people would be very grateful just by reducing the rent or sending people to cook a few bowls of porridge. At the very least, they didn't have to leave their homes and die on the road. But now, when the disaster struck, the people's homes would be registered with the government. Even if a cow died in your home, the imperial court would compensate you with a new one. If your house collapsed, it was easy. When the disaster was over, a new house would be built for you. If it was a drought, the government would arrange for you to work elsewhere. They would definitely not let you bear the pain of the disaster alone. This was a great contribution. In the past, which emperor had done this? Which emperor dared to say or think about it? Only Zhen's Kaiyuan era. Your Majesty is right. Minister of Works Zhang Zhong stepped forward and said, even though our government is harmonious, there are still some disadvantages. Although Regional Commander Zhang and Deputy Regional Commander Wang have done many things, such as providing for the elderly, educating the young, and treating the sick, all of these are national benefits that don't require the people to spend money. However, in the process of rapid development, many things have happened that are not conducive to the stability of the country. Moreover, it has reached a critical period, so we have to investigate and take action. When Zhang Zhong said this, some people started to pout and cursed in their hearts. Why are you pretending to be a big wolf, Zhang Zhong and Deputy Regional Commander Wang? It's as if you aren't familiar with them. If you don't stand out and show off, will it kill you to directly say that you have a son and daughter-in-law? How shameless. You are really shameless. You are using the fact that you have a good son and daughter-in-law to attack others. Where is your conscience? Do you still care about the friendship of your colleagues? Although they were cursing in their hearts, they had to endure this anger. Otherwise, if they offended them verbally, the revenge would come very quickly. The first to take action would probably be their other children. Yuan Qianyao's face didn't look very good when he was mocked by the emperor and the minister of works at the same time. He lowered his head and thought about it before saying, "There are also disadvantages, but they are not big. Due to the increase in national benefits, a small number of people have become lazy. Especially the policy that the imperial court will pay for the raising of infants. All kinds of men have started to work." "Is there anything else?" Li Longji asked again. "Yes," Yuan Qianyao said firmly. "There are also people who are active at this good time. After they earn money, they won't spend it for a while. They buy a lot of luxury goods and compare their wealth with others. Their friendship with others is usually measured by their wealth. They are arrogant because of their wealth, causing others to compare with them." After saying that, Yuan Qianyao probably thought that he had admitted his mistake, so he explained, "Of course, this is human nature. Moreover, rich people buy a lot of luxury goods, which will help increase the income of the imperial court's treasury. It can promote the competitiveness of others and make them work harder. Logically speaking, after 3 generations, it will return to peace. Logically speaking, if we don't solve it immediately, we won't need to wait for 3 generations. This generation will definitely cause the country to be in turmoil, and the people's hearts to be unstable. Everything is based on money. At that time, will the world belong to people or to money? Those who only know their nature and food are animals. Money can buy sex, food, clothes, and houses. With money, you can do anything. Do you still want ethics and morals? If you lose the warmth of people and only have money left, I don't care about this country," Li Longji said angrily. In the end, he had already started to hit the armrest with all his might. "Your Majesty, please calm down," the officials persuaded in unison with tacit understanding. Yuan Qianyao trembled and knelt on the ground. He said, "This official has committed a crime of not thinking deeply and not being aware of many things." Li Longji waved his hand. "Get up, I don't blame you. I did the same in the past. Who would have thought that there was such a hidden danger behind the prosperity? It was Xiao Bao and Cuckoo who told me over and over again. After analyzing it over and over again, I finally understood that things in the world are unpredictable. I believe that all of you know how capable the two of them are. When they encountered monstrous disasters, the two of them worked together and stubbornly fought against them. When they encountered military disasters, the two of them laughed and chatted nonstop. When they said that they didn't have enough money, the two of them talked about the world and turned stone into gold. No matter what they encountered, I have never seen the two of them afraid. As for your impeachment, it was just a joke to the two of them. However, every time they talked about today's matter, the two of them would always have a serious expression. Occasionally, they would show a panicked expression and sigh when talking to me. All of this shows that the pressure this matter has on the two of them is far greater than the previous few cases. The sum of the previous cases is not as serious as this. Isn't this enough? Isn't this enough to explain the problem? What exactly is hidden behind the prosperity that makes the two of them so afraid? Do you think there is anything in the world that can make them afraid?" As Li Longji's voice fell, the sound of people inhaling could be heard in Hanyuan Hall. Under the warm sunlight, the officials felt their bodies turn cold. They had always known that Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan were strong. It was a kind of strength that was soaked in their souls. They had never been afraid of anything and could easily solve any problem in front of them. They were knowledgeable in astronomy, knowledgeable in geography, and knowledgeable in the study of things in between. Regardless of whether it was the zither, chess, calligraphy, painting, poetry, song, or poetry, whether it was farming, craftsmen, or merchants, they were able to spread government and administration, and as a general, they were able to open up new territories. They were invincible in battle, and were invincible. Such people would actually be afraid. Who wouldn't be afraid of something that could make them afraid? However, it clearly looked very good now and there wasn't much of a problem. Why were they so scared? "Brother Yongcheng, do you know?" Prime Minister Song Jing asked. He was asking Zhang Zhong. After all, he was Zhang Xiaobao's father, and had probably interacted with him often. Everyone's gazes simultaneously shifted to Zhang Zhong. Zhang Zhong considered, then solemnly said, Xiao Bao and Cuckoo once said that our great Tang does not fear calamities. Calamities are nothing more than rebuilding one's home. We also do not fear weapons. When we fight with our lives. As long as the hearts of the people are united, as long as we are of one heart, there is no obstacle that cannot be overcome. What they fear is that the hearts of the people are scattered. Officials do not work for their own interests, instead using public office for personal gain. Farmers do not plow their fields, instead stealing their jobs. Craftsmen do not learn their skills, instead using shoddy goods. Merchants do not sell their goods, instead hoarding them and inflating their prices. Teachers do not look good, instead choosing students for their own benefits. Doctors do not inherit their virtues, instead using money to divide the affliction. If they do not control it now, when the time comes, it will be very difficult to change it. When the time comes, who will make the first move? Will they be able to kill all the people in the world? How many years will it take to change a nation that has lost its spiritual pillar? What methods will they use to recover the original soul? That kind of country is not a civilization, but a slave to money. Thus, Xiao Bao and Cuckoo have always been worried about this matter. They need to find a good balance in the process of development. And at this moment, they need everyone's help to settle on this point first. We can talk about other points later. After Zhang Zhong finished speaking, he used a sincere expression to look at his colleagues in the hall. Some nodded at him, some responded with firm gazes, and some lowered their heads in deep thought. After a while Li Longji ordered, "Continue reading." At this time no one objected. Everyone was frightened by what Zhang Zhong had said. The person reading the report took a deep breath and read again. The second decree, the Great Tang Bank will reduce the loan interest by 10%, the deposit interest by 10%, and the reserve rate by 20%, using the internal funds. Any handicraft industry with more than 100 workers and less than 500 workers can enjoy a one-off loan of 3,000 strings of coins from the bank. Those with more than 500 workers and less than 1,000 workers can enjoy a one-off loan of 10,000 strings of coins from the bank. Those with more than 1,000 workers can enjoy a one-off loan of less than 200,000 strings of coins from the bank, according to the requirements of their development plan. And the loan amount can be increased in the future. The officials knew that Zhang Xiaobao was starting to give out money, allowing the people of Great Tang to take out their savings and spend it. At the same time, he was encouraging handicraft industries to swallow each other. There were many consequences, but the most direct one was the depreciation of the currency, even if the country did not increase the amount of currency issued. Song Jing pondered for a moment, then walked up to Li Longji and asked softly, "Your Majesty, can you let the currency depreciate?" His voice was soft, but there was a microphone in front of him, so everyone heard it. This caused Song Jing to be taken aback, and he sighed helplessly. Li Longji smiled and shook his head. "It's fine. This is soft depreciation, also known as temporary depreciation. As long as the imperial court does not suddenly increase the amount of currency issued, there is no need to worry about the currency being worthless. After all, this is a cyclical process. The depreciation that you are worried about comes from the taxation of currency circulation. Every time you spend money and earn money, there will be taxation. You're afraid that the imperial court will spend money in a short period of time, causing the production of actual goods to be unable to keep up with the sudden spending of money, resulting in a depreciation of the currency. Is that right?" Song Jing nodded. "That's right. Furthermore, if we do this, the people will take their money out of the bank and spend in a rush. This will cause the price of goods to rise, and if the goods are expensive, the money will be cheap. Of course, this is a small problem, and Xiaobao does not care about it. Song Qing, do you know what the main source of goods is?" At this time, Li Longji felt that he could be a teacher. Back then, he had chased after Xiaobao and asked for a long time before he finally figured it out. Gao Lisher, who was standing at the side, also had a smile in his eyes. At that time, he had also followed along with Wu Huifei. If he did not learn, he would not have known. After learning, he realized that the more he learned, the more ignorant he became. The methods, goals, and execution of the various historical dynasties that he had read in books were far inferior to Xiao Bao's. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. Xiao Bao had played the economic game to the height of the Tao. It was unknown when the people who were learning now would be able to learn all of Xiao Bao's economic knowledge and continue to improve. As a prime minister, Song Jing was quite capable. When he heard the emperor's question, he immediately replied, "Your Majesty, is it the production of land and mining of minerals? What you said is only a part of it. There is more." Li Longji narrowed his eyes and said, "There is more? There is also the transportation of goods from the outside. This is the most direct." Song Jing said, "Then how do you do it? During the transportation process, how can you guarantee that the domestic currency will not depreciate in the flow of goods and goods between the cost and profit?" Li Longji asked again. He wanted to show his professionalism. Song Jing regretted. He regretted that he had not properly studied Zhang Xiaobao's book recently. That book was only circulated among the upper class, and ordinary people could not even think about reading it. He was not afraid that others would read it and learn it, but he was afraid that they would learn it at a half-baked level and use it blindly. At that time, Zhang Xiaobao would have to come back and clean up the mess. For example, a person who thought that he was smart would start to play with cash flow after reading the book. He would use all kinds of methods to collect funds. Then, a problem would occur in a certain part of the process, and the chain of funds would be broken and all would be lost. Zhang Xiaobao did not want to add such trouble to himself. Song Jing decided to go back and learn properly. Otherwise, if he was always questioned by the emperor in front of other people, it would be embarrassing. Song Jing hesitated for a moment, then braced himself and replied, "This subject feels that we can use force to solve the problem and make the nature of the trade with the outside world less fair. This way, we can use low-cost goods to exchange for high-profit goods. This is a bandit's way of thinking. It's a sign of incompetence. Then just say that you are like Xiao Bao and Cuckoo, who did not even exchange goods and relied on the army to fight for them." Li Longji was amused by Song Jing's words. "Your Majesty, please teach this subject." Song Jing played along. "Fine, we will teach you. It's your fault for not learning properly. What you just said was correct, but you did not mention the most important problem. The key lies in the production and application of production technology. Whether it is planting in the fields, mining in the mines, or trading with the outside world, they all require technical support. The problem of the fields is left to the agriculture temple, the updating of the mining tools is left to the Ministry of Works, and the trading with the outside world is also the Ministry of Works. If we want to reduce the actual cost of the goods, we have to increase the cost of the technology. For example, how much do you think a mirror is worth? A palm-sized mirror is not even worth a copper coin, but when we trade with the outside world, we can give it a value of 10 strings of coins. This is the cost advantage brought by technology. If you don't have the technology, you can only accept the other party's cost. If you want to own something, you can only pay as much as the other party says. Thus, a portion of the taxes that our great Tang earns can be allocated to the technical research department, and a portion can be used to build infrastructure such as roads. Once the roads are built, the cost of transporting goods will naturally be reduced. For example, if you send 5 people to transport a cart of rice, and the road is not good, you will have to travel for several months. Even after the cart of rice is eaten by you, you will still starve to death. The time wasted by your 5 people is actually non-productive consumption. I might as well not ask for a cart of rice and let the 5 of you find a place to raise chickens. Li Longji gestured as he spoke. That's not right. Song Jing pondered for a moment before shaking his head. Your Majesty, look, the land needs people to grow it. If you don't grow it, someone else will. There are only so many lands, and with the same technology, you don't need to be a laborer. Wouldn't it be a waste for you to go and farm? It's the same for raising chickens. Chickens need to eat, and no matter what they eat, they will consume the local resources. The resources are only in a cycle, and they don't increase. It's not like obtaining things from the outside world. Your thinking is wrong. The resources are indeed in a cycle, but we don't make use of all of them. For example, if you don't raise chickens, can you fully utilize the resources of the land and forests in the area where you raise chickens? Furthermore, these resources are increasing. For example, sunlight and wind. If you don't use them, they will still exist. When the time comes, it will be wasted. The most direct manifestation of sunlight is the growth of plants. There's also water. Clouds bring rain from other places to our great Tang. If you don't use them, they will flow into the sea. Why don't you hoard them and raise fishes? As for wind, it's not easy to make use of it now. The technology can't keep up. For example, the generator in the wind can produce electricity to illuminate the land. If you think that illumination is useless and people only want to read books, then you should think of using it to replace candles. There's also heating. For example, hatching chickens in winter. If you use electricity to hatch chickens, won't you be saving other resources? Li Longji began to give examples to Songjing. In fact, when he reached the end, Songjing already knew, but he didn't want to interrupt him. It wasn't easy for the emperor to teach you, so shouldn't you listen carefully? This subject understands. Songjing saw that His Majesty had stopped talking and was drinking tea, so he immediately said respectfully. Li Longji nodded contentedly and instructed the person reading the report. Continue reading. There are many policies today. Chapter 1237. Article 3. Males who have reached the age of 18 and meet the standards of health must serve 2 months of military service every year from the age of 25 and receive military service subsidies. Males between the age of 26 and 30, who meet the standards of health must serve 1 month of military service every year. Those who evade military service will have all their benefits revoked. The reader continued to read the third article. Based on the previous situation, he stopped reading and waited for the others to discuss. The officials fell silent. No one made a sound. They all looked at the reader. Continue. Li Longji spoke. Article 4. Those who participate in the imperial examinations must accumulate 100 days of voluntary teaching and 200 days of voluntary social work. Those who fail to complete the examinations will be disqualified and will not be allowed to participate in the examinations again for 5 years. When the fourth article was read, the 2 sides of the stairs of Hanyuan Palace began to buzz with discussion. The officials whispered to each other. Wang Bei was very close to Zhang Zhong. As they were both ministers, there was only one person between them. When he heard the fourth article, he couldn't help but squeeze to Zhang Zhong's side and ask, Zhang Xiaobao, what a Wang Wan. Now you feel that you are not afraid of anything. You are beginning to raise your blade against the officials. How bold, how bold. Zhang Zhong, you gave birth to a good son. Zhang Zhong smiled and nodded slightly at Wang Bei. Why do you say that, Lord Wang? Officials take the imperial examinations. If you are a local official, don't you still need to understand education and the people? What's wrong with learning first? Or directly manage the economic field? At the very least, you need to understand the goods and needs of the people, right? Speaking of the economy, I just remembered that last night, Xiaobao called and said that the new group we formed together might be able to generate profits this year. It's no longer about breaking even. He said that it's about accumulating and accumulating. After settling down to a certain extent, it will finally start to flourish. Wei Wei was stunned. Then he became even more indignant. Zhang Zhong, do you think that the matters of the world scholars can be enticed with money? Do you think that a noble person can be enticed with money? Do you think? About 3 million strings of profits. It's said that we will first distribute the profits, and then consider selling them overseas. This way, we will be able to generate profits every year. Zhang Zhong finished his own words. Wang Ke was stunned again. He looked away and took 4 deep breaths. When he faced Zhang Zhong again, he asked seriously, really? Does Lord Wang want to see the proposal? Zhang Zhong asked. I'll believe you this time. Where were we just now? You can't tempt people with benefits. Yes, there is such a thing. We can't use money or benefits. This is the righteousness of the country. Upholding virtue and proper conduct is virtue and virtue. Zhang Zhong, brother Yongcheng, you're going too far by talking to me about money. Am I someone that can be moved by money? How can I be unreasonable when you're talking to me? Actually, I deeply agree with what you said before. Yes, you're absolutely right. Students were taking the imperial examinations because they wanted to become officials. How could officials not know the hardships of the common people? In my opinion, the days are still too little. In total, it should be 500 days. However, if the time limit is set for too long this time, it might be repeated. It's better to try it out first. Wang Bei patted Zhang Zhong's shoulder affectionately and said righteously. I think so too. Zhang Zhong still responded with a smile. Yes. It's not easy to think of the same thing. Brother Yongcheng, are you free tonight? I heard that prawn rakes are ready to be eaten. Your restaurant bought a lot of them. How about you treat us to a meal? Wang Bei said with a greedy look. Of course I should treat you. How about tonight? Zhang Zhong agreed. Oh, okay. See you tonight. Wang Bei nodded happily and returned to his original position. He ignored the person in the middle, as if he didn't exist. That person was the Minister of Personnel, Pei Guangting. Pei Guangting heard everything and suddenly realized that people who were in charge of money really had no resistance to money. 3 million strings of cash wasn't just Wang Bei's profit, but he had been bribed. Can't you have some backbone? You lost in one round, and it was such a thorough defeat. After belittling Wang Bei in his heart, Pei Guangting thought for a while and squeezed in Zhang Zhong's position. He turned his head and whispered, Brother Yongcheng, does that company still need to increase its shares? I have some spare money. You know that if money isn't spent and doesn't flow, it will lose its effect on the economy. I'm willing to contribute to the prosperity of Tang's economy. Pei Guangting was more than 10 years older than Zhang Zhong. His third grandson was already 4 years old. He wanted to consider for his family. In fact, it was not bad to rely on bribery, but there were very few officials who bribed now. Even if he did, he couldn't help much. If bribed officials made mistakes, they would be punished. He didn't dare to oppose, even if he was in charge of the Ministry of Personnel. He wasn't afraid of the censorate or the head of the secretariat. He even dared to argue with the emperor. However, he was afraid of Xiaobei and the others who were just like him. Moreover, the emperor's argument showed that he had the ability. He was caught by Xiaobei and the others on a whim, but no one helped him. Therefore, it was better to find a proper business and invest more to get a return. He had shares in the new company, but not a lot. It would be good if he could increase his investment. Brother Lianqing, don't worry. Zhang Zhong comforted Pei Guangting and said, You'll understand if you continue to listen. There are many benefits to being an official. Otherwise, we as officials have no money, but businessmen have money. If we put all our thoughts on money, how can we use psychological politics? How many people can become saints? Pei Guangting's eyes lit up. He asked for confirmation. In that case, even if official Wang supports us, the new company will still be profitable? Of course, but Brother Lianqing will have to work hard in the future. What do you mean? Pei Guangting asked again. After the hidden high salary, Xiao Bao and Cuckoo demanded that the officials must be honest. As the saying goes, if you take someone's money, you have to solve problems. The officials who receive the hidden salary have to do things. The faster our great Tang develops, the more loopholes there will be. We may not be able to catch all the patrolling officers, and to catch the officials, we need your department to participate. What do you think we should do? Zhang Zhong listened to his son's request and began to compromise with the officials. However, he also knew that his son's schemes were never the kind where he would take a step forward. He took a step back because there was a need for greater benefits. I've given you face. Do you dare to take another step forward? Moreover, this exchange was beneficial to the Great Tang as a whole. Otherwise, they would not use the method of exchange, but other means to achieve their goals. Pei Guangting clearly understood the temperaments of Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan. It did not matter what they obtained in the end, and they should not covet it. It was fine as long as they could benefit. Otherwise, if they really angered them, they might not give them any benefits at all. Thus, he solemnly promised Zhang Zhong, don't worry. Any official who takes money, but doesn't do anything during the Great Tang's rapid development will be severely punished. The lightest punishment is imprisonment, And the heaviest punishment is extermination. Thank you. Zhang Zhong clasped his hands in respect. No need, it's my duty. Pei Guangting returned the gesture. Zhang Zhong had dealt with 2 people, so the rest was simple. There was still the Bureau of Rights, Bureau of Justice, and Bureau of Military Personnel. If the Bureau of Military Personnel passed, the Bureau of Military Personnel would not dare to obstruct them. Since that was the case, he began to approach Su Yi's side and make a deal with him. Similarly, when he gave him benefits, the great Tang would benefit. The officials in the court had no time to care about where Zhang Zhong was going, or who he was exchanging with. Many of them were deep in thought. The 5th. Wait. Just as the reporter was about to continue reading, Xiao Song, the Bureau of Military Personnel, shouted. He was very imposing, and it was obvious that he was from the Bureau of Military Personnel. Official Xiao has objections? Li Longji glanced over and asked. The officials suddenly looked at Zhang Zhong as if they were looking at a joke. Zhang Zhong had already reached Su Yi's side. Seeing the Bureau of Military Personnel stand out, he stopped what he was doing and looked over in surprise. The situation became awkward. The officials wanted to see Zhang Zhong make a fool of himself. Look, there was a problem in the place that you thought would be the least problematic. What are you going to do now? Some people looked at Wang Bei. Wang Bei wanted to curse Xiao Song for betraying Cuckoo, and curse the people who looked over. Damn it! Why are you looking at me? You want me to stand up and support Xiao Song? Then when can I earn back the money I invested? Don't you King just want to watch others fight? The problem is, do you know how much pressure I'm under? I can't earn back the money I invested. And then the benefits from Zhang family and Wang family were cancelled. Later on, I had a grandson who was about to be born, so I was able to enjoy some benefits again. And it was always given to the grandson who was born. It would have been easier without these benefits. Ever since there were benefits for children, my life has been getting worse and worse. The servants in the family don't look at me right now. I'm about to betray everyone. Didn't you see that I went over to talk to him personally instead of standing up? I'll remember you. Don't expect me to give you money easily in the future. Wang Bei cursed in his heart as he glared back. The situation paused for a moment. Xiao Song seemed to feel that he had given enough time for others to think, so he deliberately said in a rough voice. The 4th clause refers to the humanities exam, right? What about my martial arts exam? I strongly request that the Imperial Court not discriminate against us martial artists. In the future, those who take the martial arts exam must also take out 300 days to do volunteer work. I'll stop here. Even if the policy doesn't stipulate that those who take part in the martial arts exam need to do volunteer work, the Ministry of War will strictly implement this policy. Unless I'm removed, as long as I'm minister, those who take part in the martial arts exam can forget about taking advantage of the loopholes. This time, it was the people who were watching the show who cursed in their hearts. Xiao Song, would you die if you didn't flatter him? Without waiting for others to finish cursing, Xiao Song spoke again. Also, regarding the 3rd clause on military service, I declare that the Ministry of War will be strict with those who take part in the military service. We will unconditionally complete His Majesty's training. From strategy, tactics, to personal military skills, we will train those who take part in the military service in all aspects. We will train them into qualified soldiers of the great Tang Empire, to the point where they can fight and win when pulled out. We will also strengthen the ideological education of the army so that all officers and soldiers will not retreat, waver, or hesitate in the face of danger. That's all I have to say. As he finished speaking, Xiao Song took a big step back and stood back. The people who were watching the show were speechless. Xiao Song, you're the minister. You have the nerve to stand out and not show any restraint? Are you afraid of Wang Wan to this extent? Li Longji held back his laughter and said with relief, very good. Official Zhao's awareness is very high. With him in the Ministry of War, I can rest assured. Yes, Hong still lacks a martial arts teacher. Why don't you add the position of Grand Tutor to the Crown Prince? I won't let you down. Xiao Song stood out again to show his loyalty. He got a first-rank official just like that. A first-rank official was still a first-rank official. Although the Grand Tutor of the Crown Prince was an empty title, he would still receive a rank 1 salary. However, when he thought of empty titles, he also remembered that there was a group of young fellows who also had empty titles. They were the young minister of the Supreme Court and the assistant minister of the Ministry of Justice. They were the 9 people of the Great Tang, no, the 10 people of the patrol team. They held multiple titles and did not need to go through any department to convict someone. They just did it directly, depending on their mood. Therefore, these officials who wanted to stand out and say something shut up. The Minister of Rights, Sui, who was also waiting to watch the show, put away his thoughts and asked Zhang Zhong with a smile. Yongqing is here? He's here. There's a matter regarding the application and management of video education, as well as the planning of the printing of newspapers and books. Do you want to take a look? When Zhang Zhong spoke again, his tone was gentle. It was a display of confidence. Sui could understand Zhang Zhong's confidence. If he had such a son and daughter-in-law, he would be so confident too. He asked, "Is there a lot to talk about?" "Yes, I'll go after the court meeting." Zhang Zhong lowered his posture even more. "Don't, I have something to ask." "I'll go. My washing machine is leaking. It's not the kind that leaks next door. It's the kind that leaks by itself when I don't need to. I was washing it when the water ran out." Sui didn't dare to trouble Zhang Zhong now. He wanted to go there personally. As for the leak, was that a problem? "That's fine. There's probably a mistake with the seal. I'll have someone go take a look." At the same time, there's a new washing machine that can rotate in 2 directions. It's better than rotating in 1 direction. I'll be very grateful if you can help me try it out, Zhang Zhong said with a smile. His face was worth a new 2-way washing machine. He would probably take out those that had rotating barrels as well. Well said, well said. Sui also smiled happily. Seeing that the matter was settled, Zhang Zhong went back to the topic. The secret exchange of benefits was so dirty. However, as long as it was good for the common people, it was worth it. Most of the common people only saw what was in front of them, and what was in front of them. They never knew how many people had paid for their benefits. Yu Wenrong, who was also the prime minister, had no choice but to stand up and speak up. His current position was very high, and he was on the same level as the secretary. Thus, he had to figure out what Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan wanted to do. Of course, he was also clear that the reason he could become an official now was because Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan didn't stop him. Although they had a small conflict in the past, they recognized his ability. This made Yu Wenrong sigh. He admitted that he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. He couldn't do it when he was in the position of Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan and still not deliberately attack his opponents. Because if the 2 of them wanted to deal with him, they didn't need to seek balance or exchange benefits. It was just a matter of a sentence. Perhaps they didn't even see him as an opponent. Even if his father was the Minister of Works, who was of a lower rank than him, every time he thought of them, he would feel a kind of majestic aura, vast and unstoppable. As long as you didn't cross their bottom line, they wouldn't care. However, when they cared, you would be gone. Thus, when Yu Wenrong became the prime minister this year, his conduct had always been very proper. At this moment he had to ask clearly on behalf of all the officials. Your Majesty, after this subject heard these 4 conditions, his heart is not clear. Speak. In truth, Li Longji hadn't received any explanation from Zhang Xiaobao, but he was confident that he understood thoroughly. This was a kind of tacit understanding, and the source of this tacit understanding came from their daily interactions. Yu Wenrong paused, then said, "The first 2 conditions seem to shake the foundation, and the last 2 are exhausting manpower. This subject wants to understand what Xiaobao and Cuckoo are thinking." When he spoke, he didn't call Zhang Zhong like he did. He was clearly the closest person, yet he still insisted on calling him something like Jidushi Zhang. This made others think of how Zhang Zhong had been at the very beginning of the 2's imperial examinations. The result made Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan feel extremely awkward. Quite a few of the people standing on either side of the steps nodded. When Li Longji heard the first 2 conditions, he had already considered this question. Hearing this, he said, "We will tell you. The first 2 conditions are to bring out the hidden contradictions. There should be similar policies behind them. Once they are brought out, they will be resolved together, and we will obtain several years of stability. The third and fourth conditions don't actually require the common people to become soldiers, and it's also not impossible to have no students to become teachers and volunteer. This involves psychology. Every year at the age of 18, they become soldiers and receive military management. This can help the common people develop a strict and resolute way of thinking and doing things. This has a great effect on the stability of the country. When students go to teach and volunteer, there is one thing you have to know. Only when a person is willing to contribute to something will they have some attachment to it. If they go to teach, they will interact with the children. If one day they become an official and do things that involve the children's interests, I believe that the chances of them standing on the children's side will be very high. Similarly, when doing volunteer work, they still need to first understand it, or perhaps understand and feel it while doing it. Most of the students are actually not up to standard in terms of living. If you don't believe me, during the imperial examinations this fall, you can ask each of them to cook a dish. See how many people can cook it? This is a part of life. How can people who don't know how to live be an official? We like people from Jinjiao Academy because they know how to cook and mend their own clothes, so they understand the people's livelihood better. Zishou, do you know how to cook? As Li Longji spoke, he suddenly asked Zhang Juling, whose name was Zishou. Zhang Juling smiled faintly. Your Majesty wants to try this humble subject's meat with preserved vegetables. The preserved vegetables are produced in this subject's hometown. This subject is afraid that Your Majesty is used to Xiao Bao's food, and will find this subject's food tasteless. We believe that you can cook better than Xiao Bao. The food from one's hometown naturally has the taste of one's hometown, Li Longji said meaningfully. Zhang Juling shook his head. Wei Wei said, this subject doesn't dare. Xiao Bao's hometown is Great Tang, and the food in his restaurant is divided into different cuisines. He can even create a unique taste for wild vegetables, so how can this subject compare to him? Everything that is born or raised can be eaten. This subject definitely can't do the same with Xiao Bao's ability. Do you understand now, Qing? Li Longji turned around and asked Yuan Rong. Yuan Rong muttered to himself for a moment before raising his head. I understand for now, but this subject is afraid that 300 days will be wasted on other aspects, which will be detrimental to my knowledge. That's not right. Zhang Jiuling, who had just finished answering Li Longji, didn't return to his seat and directly said, what is knowledge? Is it the University of Moderation? Is it the Book of Songs? What is waste? No matter what you do, no matter how small it seems, you can learn something from it. You should know that a withered grass in spring is a disaster, and a blossoming tree in autumn is also an anomaly. Every blade of grass and every tree is also a heart of love. Yuan Rong had heard Zhang Jiuling's words. After thinking about it, he cupped his fists and nodded. I've learned. Li Longji laughed happily and instructed the person reading the newspaper. Continue. Chapter 1238. After receiving the order, the newspaper reader raised the newspaper and read, Article 5. Formulate specific regulations for national sports competitions and professionalize sports participants. After reading this article, he stopped and waited out of habit. This time, not only were the officials confused, but Li Longji was even more puzzled. Everyone knew that the most typical sports competition was football. Currently, every state had its own football team that represented the local government. There were two best stadiums, one in the capital and the other in Luzhou. Every state had their own stadiums. The wealthier places had better stadiums, while the poorer places only had stadiums for appearances. Some did not even have a lawn. Apart from the government, there were also private companies that were interested in forming their own football teams. There were even people who liked to play football who formed their own teams and played with others. Naturally, football was not the only sport competition. There were many other sports such as badminton, billiards, track and field, swimming, and so on. What puzzled the people in Hanyuan Hall was why it was included in the government's decree when it was usually done for fun. Would it affect the country if it was done well or not? Hence, Those who were confused looked at Zhang Zhong, hoping to get some information from him. Zhang Zhong was also confused. He looked at the other person and gave him a "I don't know" expression. "I'll ask Xiaobao later. Read it." Li Longji gave up on the idea of figuring it out for now. Article 6. Lift the restrictions on the purchase of lottery tickets, further crack down on private gambling houses, and increase the number of sports lottery tickets, the newspaper reader read out. Everyone understood the meaning of this article. In the past, buying lottery tickets depended on other people's wealth and income. The original plan was to control gambling, but Xiaobao and Cuckoo realized that they could not control it. Since there were too many private gambling houses, since they could not control it, they might as well reduce it. Instead of letting the local people earn the money, it would be better for the court to take it. At least, it could be used for public welfare. The pursuit of profit was difficult to eliminate since ancient times. After a while, they thought that Article 5 might serve the purpose of Article 6. There must be rules to increase the number of lottery tickets. Otherwise, how would they sell the tickets if they stopped after 2 rounds? Li Longji gestured to the newspaper reader. The newspaper reader continued reading. Article 7. Encourage craftsmen to create their own skills, improve the technology protection law, strictly unify weights and measures, and reformulate the craftsmen's skills assessment standards. Article 8. Increase food quarantine standards and gradually improve the implementation of food classification. Article 9. Implement the minimum income protection plan for migrant workers. There will be no upper limit on migrant workers' income. Formulate a standard for migrant workers' one-day working hours. Overtime will be double the wage. Increase the cycle of migrant workers' work and rest standards. A week of 7 days, with 1 day off in each cycle. The 10th rule. Wait, this subject has something to say. Yuan Rong stopped the newspaper reader. He turned his head and asked the emperor. Your Majesty, this subject doesn't understand. The officials have a rest. If the workers also rest, it's like building. If they rest, will the construction stop? Or when the ship is unloading goods at the dock, will it stop when it's time to rest? Should we stop? Li Longji wasn't sure either. It was mainly because it was too sudden, and he didn't have much time to react. After pondering for a while, he said, You can take turns to rest. Or you can also work overtime like you do on a single day. As for why it's 7 days a week and not 10 days a week, I guess it's based on the Sunday of a certain place. Li Longji seemed to be quite knowledgeable. He knew about the Sunday. If he took a day off every 10 days, perhaps Xiaobao and Cuckoo would think that it was too long. Yuan Rong nodded and asked again. If everyone takes a day off, won't it indirectly reduce the Tang people's work time, and thus reduce the production? What is the classification of the migrant workers? Do the farmers also need to rest? There will be a supplementary explanation. It should be sent here before noon today. Zhang Zhong stood up and explained. Even now, he still didn't understand why his son and daughter-in-law didn't send the detailed explanation first. Instead, they made the others wait. That's fine. Yuan Rong didn't ask any more questions. Instead, he said, I've thought about the 9th rule a bit. It means to protect the people who work for them. They're worried that the employers will exploit them. But this way, the employers will be very selective when choosing people to work for them. Only in this way can they guarantee greater benefits. So many people with professional skills, when faced with this situation, won't they lose the opportunity to find a job? While protecting a portion of the people, they are actually harming a portion of the people. How does this work? The officials all frowned. If it was in the past, perhaps some people would think that this matter didn't concern them. But now they couldn't. The imperial court needed efficiency, and it also needed a civil servant to have a sense of responsibility. If they dared to be perfunctory when it came to official matters, they would definitely be taken down. As development sped up, there were more and more things to do, and the connections with the local authorities were also closer. Every day, every department sent out telegrams non-stop. There were always some matters that needed to be resolved. It was impossible to return to the leisurely days of the past. There were already many officials who couldn't ask for leave to go out with their families. Li Longji was very satisfied with the attitude of the officials in the imperial court, but he also couldn't think of a way to resolve the problems and contradictions that Xiaobao and Cuckoo had come up with. Just as everyone was actively thinking, the person reading the newspaper gathered his courage and said, There is a 10th rule. There is? The 10th rule? Read it. Yuan Rong said, overstepping his authority. Li Longji didn't have the heart to care about such a small matter, so he nodded. The 10th rule is that the local authorities will increase the expenditure on vocational skills training. In the past, the local authorities would passively accept the training of people looking for jobs, but they would actively require people to participate in the training. For example, the people who work at the docks will need to undergo basic training on the use of docks tools, so that they can understand the use of the tools and properly allocate their strength. The person reading the newspaper read out. That's more like it. At least there's a supplement to the previous rule. Xiaobao and Cuckoo saw that the national treasury had too much money, so they helped to spend it. Li Longji said with a smile. The others nodded in agreement. Indeed, the national treasury's money was placed there, and couldn't be spent immediately. The income of the past 2 years had increased too quickly, and it had broken the previous mindset of spending money. Moreover, the local officials didn't blindly ask for money to be spent for corruption, so the money could be used reasonably. However, new spending projects hadn't been found yet. It couldn't be said that the money couldn't be spent carelessly. The simplest way to spend money was to repair roads and river embankments. If they were to spread out throughout the country, the national treasury wouldn't have enough money. It might seem like a lot, but if one wanted to build roads, bridges, and river embankments at the same time, even if they threw in a fifth of the money, they wouldn't be able to build them. However, the problem was that there were other policies supporting the construction of roads. It was that the merchants would build them and then charge for them. The merchants were very active, and some logistics companies even worked with others to build roads. They needed to quickly ship out their goods. And after some calculations, as long as the fees collected from the roads and bridges exceeded the interest of the Great Tang Bank and the depreciation of the currency, it would be a very good profit. For the time being, it seemed that the recovery period was just a little longer. There were some that took 5 years, some that took 7 years, and some that took 10 years. As for those that took more than 10 years, because the roads weren't built that well, and had to withstand the pressure of hundreds of tons of carts, those that took 10 years were already very good. The far-sighted merchants liked to build roads and bridges. They could see how fast the Great Tang was developing, and the more advanced and practical the technology was, the more the people would earn, and the more goods there would be, so they needed more circulation. Currently, they were calculating the recovery period based on the circulation of goods, but they believed that it wouldn't be long before the actual income would be several times, or even more than 10 times the current calculation. At that time, they would have to sign a supplementary agreement with the imperial court to redistribute the sudden increase in profits. Back then, when they signed the contract, it was agreed upon. As such, the officials of the imperial court couldn't directly spend money to build roads. If they wanted to build a road, after they had just gotten someone to measure it, and before the money was allocated, a merchant came to ask for it. Would they give it to him or not? Now all the officials knew that Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan intended to spend the money on the training of Great Tang's workers. This official thinks that this money should be spent. Wang Bei, who was in charge of the money, stepped forward and said to the crowd. Many people were surprised. Wang Bei, weren't you always at odds with Zhang Xiaobao and the Wang clan? Why are you speaking up for them? Could it be that you have reached an agreement with Zhang Zhong just now? But how much can you give away? How much do you get? Is it worth it? Wang Bei didn't care about the different gazes of others. As an official of Great Tang, this official sincerely supports this spending. At first glance, after the money is invested, it won't be recovered in a short period of time. However, when the country does things, it can't always look at the short term. Just like Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan's Chaoyang operation, now that the merchants are providing the money, our country's national treasury can support it even without the merchants. It's just to let the merchants remember the basic moral requirements of being a person at all times. I believe that everyone has seen it now. 10 years, How are the lives of the people of our country? How many of them are educated? It's not like in the past where it was difficult to understand government decrees. As long as the government posted the notice, the people would be able to understand it. Knowing the affairs of the country and discussing them, knowing the law and abiding by the law, learning the material and applying it, understanding the principles and taking the right path, this is the power of education. The little sapling that Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan planted many years ago has finally grown. I believe that in another 10 years, in another 20 years, the talents cultivated by our country's education alone will be enough to easily suppress the other countries and make them unable to raise their heads. This is the cultivation of children, but now it's the cultivation of adults. It's the cultivation of people who missed the education period 10 years ago. 10 years later, everyone think about it. When all the craftsmen have their own skills, what will our great Tang be like then? After Wang Bei said this, those who previously had other dirty thoughts began to admire him. At this moment his back was straightest. He put aside his personal grudges and spoke from the perspective of righteousness. Even if he was an enemy, he would gladly do it. Then, the officials began to consider according to Wang Bei's ideas. This was especially so for those officials who had seen outsiders. They deeply felt the envy and yearning of the people of other countries for Great Tang's education, as well as the fear and desire for Great Tang's technology. Li Longji sighed in relief and nodded. Good. I also feel like I'm in a dream recently. I almost can't believe that this is what our Great Tang is like. Come, bring me the newspaper. I'll read a few articles. Chapter 1239. Article 11. All fees for small-scale individual businesses will be waived, but they will not be allowed to move around and sell their goods. Those who are farmers and become individual businesses will not be listed as merchants. Those who are merchants can pay a fee to change jobs at any time. The same goes for craftsmen. Li Longji read out the words from the newspaper, then raised his head to look at the others, waiting for them to discuss. Your Majesty, isn't this a mess? Zhang Juling said with a bitter expression. Merchants were lowly and were 2 levels lower than farmers. Although merchants had a high status in many situations, at least others had a psychological advantage when compared to merchants. Zhang Zhong's subordinate, the assistant minister of the Ministry of Works, Wei Shu, glanced at his leader and had no choice but to stand up and say, I also think so. In the past, farmers and workers tried not to do business because of the issue of origin. Now that they can change jobs as they wish, isn't this encouraging everyone to do business instead of production? What do you say, official Zhang? Li Longji asked Zhang Zhong. Zhang Zhong had been focusing most of his energy on the Research Institute of the Ministry of Works, and had not spent much time studying economics. Hearing the emperor ask, he shook his head and said, I don't know. Ha, you're not as good as me, Li Longji teased. As soon as these words came out, the others were speechless at Zhang Zhong. His Majesty did not always say I in private, but this was a court meeting. Wasn't it too frivolous to talk to Zhang Zhong? Yes, I'm not as good as you. Zhang Zhong's personality was a bit straightforward, especially when it came to the etiquette of a ruler. Otherwise he wouldn't have gone over to Zhang Xiaobao and called his son Zhang Jidushi during the imperial examinations and reprimanded Zhang Xiaobao for not knowing the rules in court. Because of this, the officials could not find fault with him in this aspect. The consequences of doing anything to him were very serious. It was obvious that they were bullying an honest person. Just look at Wang Bei and the others. Li Longji helplessly shook his head when he saw Zhang Zhong's solemn expression. He couldn't understand why Zhang Zhong couldn't be more tactful. Why couldn't Zhang Zhong be more tactful? Why couldn't he make small talk or flatter him? That would make him seem more amiable. If she insisted on being stubborn, how many people would have attacked her if she didn't have her son and daughter-in-law behind her? But this was fine as well. If others were attacking him, he could use him without worry. This was the sort of person who, when asked if he had betrayed the great Tang with a blade by his neck, would do his best to turn his head, pledging his loyalty to the country with his life. All right, since you don't know, I'll ask your son's adoptive father to tell you. Li Longji looked at Gao Lisher. Gao Lisher was a eunuch. Normally, he was not supposed to speak during court meetings, but speaking in private was very useful. Now that his name was called, he had no choice but to stand up. Gao Lisher smiled at Zhang Zhong. Zhang Zhong hesitated for a moment before returning a smile. He really wanted to stop Gao Lisher, but after thinking about it, he realized that this was not the first time Gao Lisher had spoken. Moreover, Gao Lisher was able to reason with him. If he stopped Gao Lisher, he would be jealous of him. Since His Majesty has asked me to say it, I will show my incompetence. Everyone, just treat it as a joke. If there is anything wrong with it, please laugh it off. Gao Lisher said humbly. None of the officials dared to treat him as a joke. Treating him as a joke would be a real joke. It is said that agriculture, industry, and commerce are interchangeable, and that one's birthplace will be confused. In truth, the birthplace of agriculture, industry, and commerce exist only in name. Farmers also buy and sell things, such as the excess food in their homes or the poultry they raise. Craftsmen naturally have to sell the things that they make. Merchants also buy land to grow crops and research tools to create and process goods. As I said before, let the farmers gather together and use the 100 households as the foundation. However, there is no need to collect rent, and instead use money as a substitute. Isn't that the same as being a merchant? Why is there a need to make such a clear distinction? Interchangeability may seem chaotic, but it is actually a process for the common people to adjust themselves. Those who believe that they can do something well can do it without worrying about the influence of their birthplace. I trust that everyone knows how fast our great Tang is developing. There are many talented people in every industry, and the purpose of birthplace is no longer to divide people into different classes. Instead, it is to make statistics and management more convenient. In the past, it was said that merchants were inferior to farmers because they did not produce anything and only transported goods. Now, everyone knows that merchants do not only buy and sell, they can also promote the development of other industries. For example, if merchants say that chickens are worth money, everyone will work hard to raise chickens. If merchants say that handicrafts are worth money, craftsmen will produce more. Merchants can even transport goods from overseas. A qualified merchant is very useful. Let's talk about the people on the top list of billionaires. Speaking of this, everyone seems to find it funny. Its appearance was caused by a children's game for Monopoly. Now it has become a symbol of whether a merchant is successful or not. At the same time, it is also a test for merchants to learn the economic rules. Then everyone knows the rules. Not only do you have to be rich enough, you also have to pass the test. Otherwise, even if you buy a lottery ticket and win a few million strings of coins, you won't be able to enter the list. Of course, a person with a few million strings of coins won't be able to enter the list. When Gao Lisher said this, many people laughed. Some people found it amusing, while others laughed nostalgically, thinking of the past. Back then, who would have thought that a game would have such a far-reaching influence? Who would have thought that a game could earn so much money? Who would have thought that the person who designed the game would do everything for money, but no longer care about money when he had money? That was a legend. That was a legend. Time seemed to have gone on for a long time, but it also seemed to have always been in front of them. Monopoly had always been popular, but the person who designed it no longer played games. That period of time could not be sealed away. There was no need to recall it because it would never be forgotten. Therefore, everyone began to reminisce about the time and place of a court meeting. Li Longji narrowed his eyes and experienced the happy process of reminiscing. He said, all right. Let's get down to business. Let's talk about the origin, status, and contribution of merchants. Everyone snapped back to their senses and smiled at each other, as though they were not the ones reminiscing. Gao Lisher thought about what he wanted to say and continued. Any merchant who can enter the list has contributed a lot to the country. They will take the initiative to communicate with places that provide goods when there is a need. For example, there is a merchant who goes to Wanyan County and says that he wants to buy a large number of poultry in half a year. The price is relatively high, about 100,000 birds. The county magistrate of Wanyan County is an ordinary county magistrate, not from Jianjia. Because the difference is very big, An ordinary county magistrate will immediately tell the people when he hears it, and the people will increase the scale of breeding. For merchants who can't enter the list, he will wait for Wanyan County to breed them. However, for merchants on the list, he will send people to investigate. After finding that there are too many, he will tell the people that you can't breed them like this. Otherwise, when he collects enough, you won't be able to increase the price and will lose money. At that time, he will think of a way to adjust, discuss with the people, discuss with the government, and help the local farmers to distribute and scale. Otherwise, he will be severely punished. Of course, if the county magistrate is someone from Jianjiao Academy, he will adjust immediately without the need for merchants to adjust. I'm just saying, people from Jianjiao won't passively wait for merchants to come to them. For example, the county magistrate of Wanyan County has already finished planning and took the initiative to negotiate with merchants. He is only waiting for the contract to be fulfilled. After saying a bunch of words, Gao Lishir didn't say anything else. He had already expressed what he wanted to express. Zhang Juling reacted quickly and said, "Thank you, General Gao. I didn't think it through just now, but now I've thought it through. Indeed, we can't look at merchants like we did in the past. They all have a sense of responsibility, and the stability of Tang is indispensable to their contributions. Besides, Xiaobao has always been suppressing the status of merchants, but suppressing doesn't mean belittling them. Xiaobao just doesn't want merchants to have a higher status than others. We shouldn't discriminate against merchants." Then I'll continue reading, the last one. Li Longji didn't expect that everyone's views of merchants were so different. However, there were merchants in every official's family. Otherwise, where would they get money? Their previous salaries weren't enough for them to eat, drink, and play. They just didn't want the status of merchants to increase and be out of their control. Otherwise, why did they have to use the method of exchanging benefits when raising taxes? The biggest resistance behind the scenes came from them. Li Longji understood everything, but he couldn't directly kill them. If he killed them all, who would help him govern the country? Moreover, if he killed a bunch of them, the new ones wouldn't be clean either. Article 12. The local government will set up a county-style carriage company. 90% of the Great Tang's army will be eliminated and used for transportation. At the same time, the postal department will be integrated, and a uniform stamp will be issued. A uniform fee will be set for the weight and distance of mail. After reading the last article, Li Longji put down the newspaper and picked up his teacup. However, he didn't drink from it. Instead, he used the lid of the teacup to sweep the water. The civil and military officials on both sides once again entered a state of contemplation. Some simply returned to the small table at the back and sat down to drink tea. There were chairs and tables behind them, but there was only tea on them and no snacks. They could sit there from the start of the court session. The main reason was that the people at the front didn't sit, and the people at the back wouldn't be able to see the emperor if they sat. Moreover, they didn't have such treatment in the past, so they weren't used to it. The discussion today took too long, and some couldn't stand and had to sit down to rest. After a while, everyone sat down as if they were having a tea party. Only the chamberlains of Jin still had to stand there with their sabers. When Li Longji saw the situation below, he was amused. Usually, when the court session was held in Xingqing Palace, everyone would sit. However, when it came to the morning court session, everyone would stand. Later, he discovered a problem. If they stood for too long, once the court session ended, the officials wouldn't immediately return to work. Instead, they would rest, which would affect their efficiency. Therefore, during the winter, not only did they have to install heaters, but they also had to provide chairs for everyone. After drinking a few mouthfuls of tea and waiting for someone to refill it, Li Longji looked at the people sitting and said, "Everyone speak. Your Majesty, the tea is good." Jiangxin, the person in charge of the agriculture temple who was being stared at by the emperor, had no choice but to speak. Have you eaten breakfast? You're drinking black pu'er tea." Li Longji nodded and continued to stare at Jiangxin, seeing that he couldn't avoid it. Jiangxin rubbed his stomach and replied, "I haven't eaten. No wonder I'm hungry." This official was thinking that since many of the military horses have been eliminated, Could they be used for farming? We can use oxen in dry fields and paddy fields. Where's Xiaoqing? Li Longji looked at the Minister of War Xiaosong. Xiaosong also didn't eat breakfast. There was only tea on the coffee table, but he brought his own food. He didn't bring any buns. There was stuffing, but he was afraid that the smell would spread too far. He brought hot and dry biscuits. Each biscuit was only a quarter of the size of a palm. There were pickles in the biscuits. When he ate one biscuit at a time, there was no smell, so he wasn't afraid of choking. At this moment, he took the time to eat 2 biscuits. Before he could swallow them, he was called. It must be said that martial artists were also quick-witted. While chewing, Xiaosong quickly picked up the cup of tea and gulped it down. Then he sighed and said to the emperor, "Your Majesty, this is indeed a famous pu'er tea. It's very tasty." Li Longji smiled and nodded. "I still have hibiscus cakes. Xiaoqing, do you want to try some?" "No need, this official isn't hungry." Speaking of the military horses, this official is only worried about one thing. After the military horses are eliminated, will the remaining ones be enough for war? Although there are guns and cannons now, and there's no need for soldiers to ride on horses and charge with swords, transport still needs to be used, right? Cannonballs and bullets, as well as food and medicine. Xiaosong rubbed his chest as he spoke. Just now he had swallowed too much and choked. However, he wasn't afraid that the emperor would see him eat. It was normal to eat in the morning court, but if he was caught, he would be embarrassed. It would appear that he had no ability to steal food. "Is there anything else?" Li Longji asked. "No." Xiaosong put down his hand that was rubbing his stomach. He felt much better. "Then you don't have to worry about this. Xiao Bao and Cuckoo have already discovered that the cannibals have gathered no less than 30,000 cavalrymen at the border of the 2 countries. They said that the Arabian horses are more useful, and they want to take them by surprise." Li Longji explained. Xiaosong raised his hand and scratched his head. This official knows about the border. 30,000 cavalrymen is very difficult to take down, right? If you fire the cannons, the cavalrymen will scatter. If you use the guns when the enemy charges, you must kill the horses in front. Then the horses at the back will trip or take a detour. When you take them down, there won't be many left. That's their problem. If they can't take them down, they'll think of other ways. In any case, they said that it's enough to leave 10% of the military horses. Li Longji also didn't know how to take other people's horses. "I don't understand. I don't understand." Xiaosong shook his head and didn't say anything else. Li Longji didn't care what Xiaosong was thinking. His gaze continued to sweep across the officials below. This time, there was no need for him to name names. Yuan Qianyao, who was very close to him, put down his teacup and asked. In the beginning, there was only military mail and no civilian mail. Later, Xiao Bao and the others set up one. Then there were private companies in other places. Relatively speaking, it's still considered standard. However, the mailing locations can't cover the entire country. Will the newly established mailing department steal their business? This official has the same question. Yuanrong echoed. Xiao Bao's intention might be to steal their business. After all, their coverage is small, and their information system isn't as complete as the imperial court's. Xiao Bao didn't let his own intelligence department participate. Li Longji didn't understand what was going on, so he wanted someone to help him analyze it. At this moment, Zhang Zhong was annoyed. He still had things to do in the Ministry of Works, so he said, "This official will immediately get Xiao Bao and the others to send a detailed explanation. We'll look at it when the time comes and discuss it. In the end, we still have to do according to what's written in the newspaper. Why bother?" Only Gao Lisher understood what was going on. As long as Her Majesty encountered something that Xiao Bao was involved in, she would definitely consider it carefully and think of a way to scheme against Xiao Bao. It was a habit that had been formed over many years. It wasn't easy to change it in a short period of time, and perhaps it would never change. The officials nodded. They were also vexed. Seeing that no one was helping him, Li Longji sighed gloomily. Court is adjourned. I'll get the Imperial Kitchen to send each of you a boxed meal with 2 meat and 2 vegetables, so that you won't feel uncomfortable secretly eating below. If it really doesn't work out, set aside a quarter of an hour during morning court to eat in the hall. Those who came early can come in to eat. I really don't need to worry about any danger if the palace doors are opened early. It's now the era of firearms. As long as you don't bring explosives or guns in, it's fine. In the future, make sure to reserve diesel locomotives. Even if you're late, you won't be considered late. Disperse, disperse. Waving his hand, Li Longji didn't leave. He sat there and looked at the sky. No one knew what he was thinking. The civil and military officials were now used to the situation where etiquette was getting worse and worse. Her Majesty was beginning to be pragmatic. She saved time on etiquette and could do other things, even if it was just listening to music or reading stories in the newspaper. Therefore, the officials didn't want to waste time. They drank all the tea in their teacups and got up to leave. Those who brought food couldn't eat it. When they went back, they would eat boxed meals. At noon, there would be people from Savant's restaurant or Success House who would send them food. Life was getting better and better. This bunch of people, I really don't know what to say about them. Li Longji shook his head and complained. He then instructed Gao Lishir. Go to the pear garden and choose a few crosstalk and skits. I'll be happy. Tell me, what kind of reaction do you think the 12 national policies will have? Gao Lishir turned his head and glanced at eunuch Luobin. Luobin was very perceptive and ran to the pear garden to make the arrangements. Turning his head, Gao Lishir reached out to help Li Longji and said, I think it will be very chaotic. After a day and a half of chaos, Xiao Bao and Cuckoo will take the opportunity to take action and resolve the unstable situation. If it were me who saw the newspaper, I would definitely be confused. I've been confused for a long time. The officials haven't even discussed the specific consequences, let alone the common people. Chaos, chaos, chaos. After a while, there will be stability for a few years. Li Longji waved his hand, indicating that he didn't need anyone to help him. He walked to a corner, grabbed a bicycle, and rode it toward the pear garden. Now he didn't sit in a sedan anymore. It was slow and not as comfortable as riding a bicycle. Gao Lishir also quickly took a bicycle from someone and rode it. With a wave of his hand, the large bicycle team left Hanyuan Palace Hall. There were also people with guns running behind them. The hot air balloons above were signaling to each other, doing their job as guards. It could be said that Li Longji wasn't afraid. The palace and the main streets were illuminated by large light bulbs. The hot air balloons in the sky were on alert. There were also many hidden sentries, who could come in and assassinate him. When reading the newspapers in the morning court, the major prefectures had already begun to post the newspapers. There were also people who delivered the newspapers to the various counties. Those who were too far away could only see the newspapers at night. As for the villages that were further away, they had to be weekly or monthly. In any case, there wouldn't be anyone who would go out of their way to deliver the newspapers every day. The commoners who didn't subscribe to the newspapers at home all gathered at the bulletin board. Those who subscribed to the newspapers also gathered in front of the bulletin board. In fact, there were many people who subscribed to the newspapers in the prefectures. This was because in the end, they didn't lose money at all. Moreover, by cutting out the parts where there were discounts from the merchants, they had an overall advantage. The first few pages of the newspapers were content, while the back pages were filled with advertisements. The merchants who placed the advertisements would bear the cost of the subscriptions. Furthermore, it wasn't that wool came from the sheep's back. The price of similar products was the same. If they placed the advertisements in large quantities, they would earn this portion of the money. If the quantity was large to a certain extent, the price could be lowered when the goods were purchased. This would cause the merchants who didn't advertise similar products to not have to pay extra, but they would earn less. The law of the market was just that interesting. Of course, the Yaman's bulletin board couldn't put the advertisements on the front pages. They only put up the useful ones at the front. There were 2 copies and both sides had to be displayed. The commoners who weren't in a hurry to work basically liked to look at the bulletin board in the morning. They would chat with others and discuss the state affairs. The commoners who were used to reading the newspapers came to the bulletin board today. When they saw the first 12 national policies, they suddenly felt unaccustomed. What's the meaning of this? A bunch of policies came out today? In front of the Yamen's bulletin board in Luoyang Prefecture of Hunan Province, a person who usually learned to read a few words from a child was stunned when he saw the 12 national policies. Usually there would be a national policy every 10 days or half a month. Most of it was about the new laws. The economy was developing too quickly, so there was a need to constantly supplement the laws. Therefore, most of the time it was about the laws. Most of the time, it was about the new security requirements and the situation of the poultry being farmed to let everyone pay attention. Most of the advertisements were printed according to the situation of each prefecture. Unless it was a chain store that crossed prefectures, there would be merchants from other places who would come to spend money. 1, 2, 3, 12. There are 12 in total. Another person followed. In fact, he was just showing off that he knew how to read. You still need to count one by one? At the end it says 12. Of course it's 12. The main question isn't how many, but what is written every day. The person who spoke first continued. Everyone looked at it as if they were reading it. Occasionally, someone would read a few words. Not only did they not read it completely, but even if they did read it, there were some who read it wrongly. Who can tell us what the newspaper means? Everyone crowded to look at it for a while, and realized that they didn't understand. They began to look around for someone who understood, such as a scholar. Otherwise, if they let their children read it out at home, they wouldn't understand either. Everyone looked around for a while, and finally found a scholar who had just finished his breakfast. More accurately, he was a teacher. He taught in the largest school in the prefecture, and was a high scholar. Usually he would only teach in the afternoon. In the morning, he liked to wander around the bulletin board to gain extra respect. Teacher Yuan, good morning. Quick, help me take a look. What's written on the newspaper? I don't understand. As soon as he arrived, someone greeted him. The teacher with the surname Yuan smiled reservedly. He strode through the path that others had made way for him to get close to the notice board. He looked up and said, the first point is, it is a series of material tax forms minus the farmer's rent and poll tax. It is replaced by money. All farmers need to sell their grain to raise money. Teacher Yuan, can you tell us what it means? When the people around heard this, they couldn't understand. It means that in the future, you don't have to give them food or other things. You just have to give them money. Using money to pay the rent, isn't that making things difficult for them? After Teacher Yuan finished explaining, he added another sentence. The people around looked at him and waited for him to continue. Look at this. You have to sell your own crops and exchange them for money to pay the tax. If you sell your crops for a lot of money, then it's fine. But if you sell your crops for a little money, then won't you lose money? And when the crops are harvested, it's also the time when the crops are cheap. How can the imperial court do this? Teacher Yuan's tone became serious. He was obviously very angry. He didn't understand how the imperial court changed in the blink of an eye. The people around started to discuss. Then what should we do? How can we do business? Even if we raise chickens, someone will come and collect them. It's the same for our crops. We have to wait for the government to come and take them away. Teacher Yuan, are you sure you didn't read wrongly? Teacher Yuan, please think of a solution. How did it become like this? Teacher Yuan, please read on and see if there are any other explanations. All right, I'll read it. Mr. Yuan suppressed his anger and continued reading the newspaper. The first and second point is that the cultivators are allowed to work with other cultivators in the area around them. All decisions will be made by the leader, and they will be protected by the corresponding laws. After reading the second point, the people around continued to wait for his explanation. Teacher Yuan pondered for a moment and then sneered. All right, you don't have to worry about selling your own crops or silk. The imperial court has already thought of a plan for you. 100 households will be grouped together, and one person will be chosen as the leader. Or you can group a village and choose one person to be the leader. If you want your own land, you can discuss with him and see what you want to plant. Once the decision is made, you are not allowed to change it. When the time comes, you will be responsible for whether the crops you grow lose or earn. If you don't know anything, Just rent the land to him and wait for him to hire you as helpers. If you lose or earn, it will all belong to him. After all, you don't have to sell your own crops anymore. But if the leader feels that your family's health isn't good and you work slower than others, he won't let you be his helper. You will have less income, and it will be worse than farming on your own. What a good imperial court. What a good national policy. This is clearly land annexation. This is the law of the jungle. This is self-elimination. I can't help but ask, has the Tang dynasty's emperor changed? Are Xiaobao and Cuckoo not around anymore? Teacher Yuan had turned into a roar at the end of his words. His hands were clenched into fists. The people listening to him were dumbfounded. Even the yamen runners standing next to him were dumbfounded. According to what Teacher Yuan said, wasn't this a national policy? It couldn't be, right? For a moment, the people were scared. They were afraid that Teacher Yuan's words were true. If the emperor was changed, then Xiaobao and Cuckoo would also be gone. What should they do? The sky was falling. What nonsense are you talking about? A person walked out of the yamen. He was the secretary of the Department of Defense. The people all knew him. He was Su Wei Suingyi. Secretary Su Wei's eyes swept over the people and Teacher Yuan. He said, "Look at the back. The 12 national policies were written by Xiaobao, and then unanimously passed by the imperial court. What happened? Do we need your money to see a doctor? Don't let children go to school for free? Don't you have a place to complain? Can't you eat and starve to death? Don't you have a single old man to take care of?" Teacher Yuan shook his head and looked at the back. Indeed, Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan's names were written. There was also a seal. He was even more puzzled. If it was Xiaobao's policy, why did he allow for the annexation of land? Furthermore, he used the first point to speed up the annexation of land the next day. The people around were not as worried. When they heard that it was Xiaobao and Cuckoo who wrote the national policies, they were relieved. Then someone asked Teacher Yuan, "Teacher Yuan, did you think wrongly?" You. It was clearly written. How could I think wrongly? I am a high scholar. How could I not understand such a simple thing? Teacher Yuan, no one said that you don't understand. It's just that. Look at it from the beginning. Think carefully. Everyone makes mistakes, right? There were still people who did not believe him. Teacher Yuan was so angry that he did not speak. He looked at Tian'er. Advisor Chao laughed and helped him out. It's just as Brother Yuan said. Xiaobao and Cuckoo's national policies, according to the literal meaning, are to encourage the annexation of land. However, I don't think that they would have the intention to harm the people. It's just that we are unable to understand the deeper meaning. Everyone, there is no need to panic. That's right, that's right. What's there to be afraid of? Would Xiaobao and the rest harm us? I don't believe it. They would have done it long ago. Why wait until now? Isn't that so? If they say that I am harming myself, I believe it. If they say that Xiaobao and the rest are harming me, I don't believe it. I guarantee that there is something that we do not understand. Let's not worry about it first. Teacher Yuan, please continue reading. There are still 11 more. Teacher Yuan was clearly in a fit of pique and didn't say anything. I'll read it. Su Wei, who had already read the 12 national policies 3 times, stepped forward. Official Su, please continue with your work. Just find an official to do it. An official to do it is even busier. I'll read the same thing. The second policy, the Tang Bank will reduce the interest rate in one go, and can increase the amount of loans in the future. Su Wei read the second policy out loud, and explained it according to what he understood when he was reading the newspaper in the yamen. The purpose is to tell everyone not to keep their money in the bank. Take it out and spend it. If you are not willing to spend it, the interest rate will decrease when you keep your money in the bank. There is no need to worry about the money you have saved before. Furthermore, it encourages everyone to work together to open a workshop and take a loan from the bank. The interest rate will be lower than before. Furthermore, the bank will have enough money for you to take a loan. There is no need to be afraid that the bank will not have enough money. But money will become less and less valuable. Teacher Yuan could not help but say. Su Wei shook his head. That is hard to say. Whether money is valuable or not depends on its purchasing power, not how much it can be spent. The second policy is just like that. Su Wei then read the third policy, which was military service, and the fourth policy, which was for students to work as volunteers. The people did not understand the first 2 points, but the third point did not matter. Being a soldier was much better than being in the past. In the past, they had to prepare their own weapons and armor, and they were not paid. Furthermore, there was only so much time every year, and they could still shoot to satisfy their cravings. The food in the army would not be bad, and after some training, their bodies would be strong. In case there was a need to fight, they could pick up a gun and contribute to the country. The fourth policy was for students to work. If they want to do it, they can just treat it as training. Don't study all day and become stupid. Su Wei then read the fifth policy. The people felt that this was good, and it would be more lively in the future. The sixth policy was for lottery. The people were indifferent. Only those who opened gambling houses were troubled. The seventh policy was for craftsmen to use the same ruler. The people felt that it was not bad. In the future, when making furniture, there was no need to worry about the different sizes. The eighth policy was for food quarantine. The people around the announcement nodded their heads. This was right. What if they ate something bad? The ninth policy was for workers to have a minimum wage. Good. In the future, if any employer dared to give them less, they could sue them. As for rest, there was no need for that, right? Rest when you are tired. Rest when you are not tired. Just wait and see. If you really can't do it, you can do it secretly. The 10th policy was for the government to train. In the past, they could go to the yamen to learn and then arrange for them to work. Now, they just had to go to the yamen. Perhaps it would be a waste of time. They did not know if there was a need for them to learn. The 11th policy was for sellers and stalls to not have to pay any money. Was there such a good thing? There was no management fee. All the money they earned was their own. The 12th policy was for them to send things to distant people in the future through the yamen. They did not know if it was cheaper than the original. If it was cheaper, they could use the yamen. Would it be faster to send things? If it was faster, they could also use the yamen for the same price. Su Weinian explained a little, and the people followed suit. Their thinking was very simple. Everything was for their own benefit. Deeper knowledge had nothing to do with them. Alright, that's the general idea. There is a lot of knowledge in it. Including the one in front of me, I have already read it 4 times. I still do not understand it. In any case, most of them seem to be beneficial to you. After Su Weinian finished, he added this sentence. He shook his head and remembered what he came out to do. He continued to work. After he left, Teacher Yuan was still in a daze. Previously, he had concluded that Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan's national policies were harmful. However, after the last 10 policies came out, they started to become good. What was going on? Teacher Yuan, look, you misunderstood Xiaobao and Cuckoo, right? I knew it. How could the two of them harm us? In the future, we can go and watch normal football matches. It won't be like now. Sometimes they play, sometimes they don't. It makes people anxious. Someone nudged Teacher Yuan and said, but the first policy is indeed. I don't understand. Is there a need to say that Xiaobao is scheming? You may think one thing, but it is actually another. You may think that he is good to you, but he might not be good to you. You may think that he is bad to you, but he might not be bad. Yes, he is not bad. Someone said at the side. Teacher Yuan really could not understand what was wrong. He shook his head. Forget it. I will take one step at a time. We will see in the future. I am going back. You can see for yourselves. After he finished speaking, he left with his hands behind his back. He bent down and lowered his head. It seemed that he was still thinking. The people did not disperse. They still surrounded the bulletin board and said a few words from time to time. They were mainly afraid that they would forget. There were 12 policies. They should memorize them first. It would be easier to show off when they told others later. Especially when their children came home from school, they would let them read it and ask them what it meant. If they could not answer, they would teach it to them. They would let them understand that parents were still very powerful. Chapter 1240. What are you going to perform tonight? Zhang Xiaobao asked Wang Wan as the two of them returned to the restaurant and waited for the news of the firing. Wang Wan thought about the few performances she usually prepared and replied, "How about I sing Xiao Hongqian? Song and dance. Then I'll sing Ocean's Laughter." Zhang Xiaobao followed suit. "Why don't you choose a few new songs? They're old songs that have been around for more than 100 years. There's nothing new about them for you and me," Wang Wan suggested. Zhang Xiaobao shook his head. "No. To us there aren't any new songs. The so-called new songs have been around for a very long time. Besides, the popular songs of that time didn't even last for more than a few years. If we hadn't come here, I reckon that after a decade or so of normal time, the people of that generation wouldn't even remember the popular songs." "That's true. Then why do you still remember Xiao Hongqian and Ocean's Laughter?" Wang Wan began to discuss this question with Zhang Xiaobao again. The two soldiers seemed to have forgotten that there were still several battlefields as they nervously prepared. It didn't matter if it was because they were confident of victory or because they didn't care. In any case, there wasn't a trace of the haze of war in the sky from them. Zhang Xiaobao thought about it and said uncertainly, "It's probably related to the mode. The two songs both use pentatonic modes, which is the easiest way to resonate with the human body and make it easier for people to grasp the intervals. Am I right?" "How would I know? Anyway, the Europeans like a different kind of structure, influenced by the 12 equal temperaments. It's mainly early church music, which generally pursues overtones. Later, due to the hard work of the colonial era, there were black elements in America. Under the influence of European music, rap music was added. Rap music is popular not because of the good mode, but because of the strong sense of rhythm. Different from the mode that affects the human body's body structure and voice resonance, the biggest influence is the human body's blood flow and heartbeat. It can be said that they lead to the same destination by different means." Wang Wan analyzed the relationship between the existence of music and people from another perspective. Zhang Xiaobao thought about it, but he really couldn't come to a conclusion. He could only return to the original topic. "Then are we still going to sing Laughing at the Mortal World and Laughing at the Sea?" "Sing? Why wouldn't I? The 3 Strokes of Plum Blossoms is even more old-fashioned. Haven't there always been people who like to listen to it? There are a few songs in Carmen. Let's not talk about that. In the past, someone actually said that Sister Zhang sang better than the original version. Why don't you sing the Matador song from there?" Wang Wan had always liked the original version. She felt that the original version not only put in a lot of effort at the beginning, but also had a contemporary feel. "I'm not going to sing. I don't like narrative songs. I've realized that the difference between China's songs and Europe's songs is that they focus on the details. Just like language, drawing, and so on, China's songs focus on depth and connotation. When singing, Europe wants to directly express their delicate emotions through their voice, while China's songs focus on touching the inner feelings. Their ideologies are different, so it's very difficult to perfectly integrate them. If one day they really integrate, it's China that embraces them, not them absorbing China. The simplest example is the division of land. Their large land is divided into small pieces, divided into different countries. If it weren't for special geographical restrictions, it would be impossible for such a situation to exist in China. They would have been annexed long ago, or they would have been annexed by others. That's why our Chinese people are a nation that loves peace and stability. We don't like to divide a piece of land into many parts, and then we're always on tenterhooks about fighting each other." Zhang Xiaobao talked about ideology for music, and then praised his own nation. Wang Wan was angry and amused. "We all know what that last sentence means, so don't say it." "Okay, where are Xiaobei and the others?" Zhang Xiaobao realized that he had been back for a while, but he didn't see his younger siblings. "They're probably preparing for some performance. They didn't go out yesterday, saying that they were afraid that someone would attack them during the war. If they were hurt, it would affect us. The provincial governor invited them to Izhou school to take a look, but they refused. In their courtyard, other than teaching each other, they're assembling toys." Wang Wan smiled at Zhang Xiaobao. In fact, she wasn't worried about anything happening in Izhou. The guard she brought had firmly controlled the entire prefectural city. Her younger siblings were very sensible and stayed at home to not cause trouble for the adults. Xiaobei and the others were currently in their courtyard. They weren't teaching each other, nor were they assembling toys. They weren't even preparing for a performance like Wang Wan had said. They were reading newspapers, ignoring advertisements and stories, and studying the 12 national policies together. Xiaobei's face was full of sadness. I can't see anything. It involves all kinds of aspects. It's a mess. Gap, this is the gap. Xiao Yuan supported his chin with his hand and nodded. There has always been a gap. I originally thought that the gap between us was gradually narrowing. Today, I realized that it was because our older siblings didn't use their full strength. The more I think about it, the more my head hurts. Why don't we just assemble toys? Toys. Is research more important? Or is playing with toys more important? Xiaobei pouted. For us, playing with toys is the most important thing. We need to learn. We need to learn while playing, not reach the sky in one step. Reaching the level of our older siblings is just a dream, absolutely. Brother Xiaohai, what do you think? While speaking, Xiao Yuan flipped through a catalog with the names of various toys. She wanted to choose one to play with. They had a lot of toys, so many that they could fill up a large room. They were divided into many types, and each type of toy required them to treat seriously. They contained all kinds of knowledge. Even the simplest pushcart game had to be played with brains after adding in the rules. But at least they were playing, unlike now, where they stared at the words on the newspaper and pondered over them. When the words were combined, it wasn't a poem, nor was it a story. It was a strategy related to the stable development of the entire Tang Empire for a period of time. Xiao Yuan felt that with the current level of the Tang Empire's inspection team, they should stay away. Perhaps in another 10 or 20 years, they would be qualified to participate. Xiaohai, who had strong logical thinking ability, was currently in a confused situation. He wanted to use his logical thinking ability to organize the 12 policies, but the more he did, the more illogical he felt. It was too painful. Hearing his brother Xiao Yuan's question, he sighed and said, "Anyway, I still have to learn. Sister said that my mathematics level is at the level of a second to third year in a certain period of time, the kind that has a little contact with mathematical Olympiad. There's also something like first to third year in high school, followed by professional first year to fourth year, and only a certain category. After that, it's a graduate student of that category. Then when will I be able to understand all of the categories? Then I'll continue to learn to a higher level, to the extent where I can calculate the circulation of the universe, and calculate the trajectory of time and space? Sister also said that she can only teach me to the level of a graduate student in one of the categories. I have to walk my own path in the future. Otherwise, she told me to wait for her and my brother to find time to specially study it. With their talent, they might be able to teach me to a higher level." Xiaohai trembled as he spoke, clearly feeling the fear of the future. Wang Wan had indeed told Xiaohai that if she wanted to continue teaching Xiaohai, then she and Zhang Xiaobao had to give up many things and focus their energy. Then the two of them would study mathematics together. With the two of them's IQ and previous experience, there was hope to achieve the dream of educating Xiaohai to become an academician. And as for academicians, no matter which discipline they were in, on the path that belonged to them, it was only the beginning. Even Zhang Xiaobao admitted that in his lifetime, he was just a baby who had just opened his eyes in the field of economics. The world was so strange and varied. Let's understand one thing first, okay? Don't worry about the rest. Xiaobei saw that everyone had lost interest in the 12 national policies, so he made a request. Zhang Chang shook his head vigorously. It's not that I don't support you. It's that I don't understand it at all. It's not like you don't know my brother's style. What's the use of taking out one of the policies? It's a chain of policies. Not one of them can be missing. It's much more difficult than the various reforms we learned in history. That's right, Xiao Yuan echoed and said. After seeing my brother play, I know that the reforms of the past were really too simple. Let's play Monopoly, okay? Okay. Xiaobei gave up on continuing to study the 12 national policies. What program are they preparing? Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan were waiting for time. They did not wait for a telegram, but they did wait for someone to check on Xiaobei. They're playing Monopoly. Many people are busy. They want to add in the 12 national policies rules. They say that they want to carefully study the reforms in the game and reach half of your level. The person who went to check on them reported. After he left, Zhang Xiaobao looked at Wang Wan and smiled. Wang Wan also smiled and said, "The people who proposed the reforms in history are all heroes. What ability do we have? It's nothing more than summarizing the path taken by our predecessors. In fact, everything we have was given to us by our predecessors, so we have the obligation and responsibility to pass it on to our descendants." Wang Wan thought about the development of various parts of the world in various historical periods, and was filled with emotions. The figures that stood out in every period seemed to be right in front of her eyes. They were so vivid and distinct. Whether it was success or failure, there was a star that belonged to them in the night sky of history. Zhang Xiaobao smacked his lips twice and knocked on the table with his hand. He said, "That's why humans are more powerful than other creatures. The inheritance of human experience is systematic. Xiaobei and the rest are really smart. They know that they don't understand, so they let people put the rules into Monopoly. As they play, they can feel the specific changes. This is an era full of vitality, and we have a lot of potential. What you can do is to invade, and you're encouraging me to invade as well." Wang Wan habitually attacked Zhang Xiaobao. "We're spreading the seeds of civilization, so that the people of the world can feel the abundance of spring and the harvest of autumn as soon as possible. And the heat of summer and the cold of winter, right?" Reporting, a call from the front. "The vanguard of our first army has engaged the garrison of the Akengduo. They're advancing at full speed under the cover of artillery fire." While Zhang Xiaobao and Wang Wan were leisurely chatting, a person who was guarding the telegram ran in and reported to the two of them. Okay. Zhang Xiaobao was very happy. They were finally fighting. As for the engagement, that was impossible. What kind of fire did the other side have? The other side probably had a stomach full of anger. Wang Wan thought for a while and waved to the person to leave. Then she analyzed to Zhang Xiaobao. "Using artillery, it's probably because the local garrison of the Akengduo has gathered troops. At the same time, the infantry also took bulletproof measures. If they use thick wooden shields, normal bullets can't penetrate them. At the same time, the enemy's arrows are also effective. The Akengduo are learning to be smart." Zhang Xiaobao nodded and agreed with Wang Wan's words. Hot weapons were indeed superior to cold weapons. It was an overwhelming advantage. However, the two of them pursued 0 casualties in the battle. As for running and falling to death, being bitten to death by poisonous snakes, or even dying of illness, that didn't count. To achieve 0 casualties, long-range attacks had to be in place. Otherwise, once they entered the range of the enemy's long-range weapons, there would definitely be casualties. That was absolutely unavoidable. Now what was tested was the supply of artillery shells. As long as they were willing to spend money, the Tang Empire's military supply could keep up. It wasn't difficult to destroy the enemy. Wang Wan still looked indifferent and said, "The Akengduo can only last through the first wave of attacks. Even if they make wooden shields, when the situation is out of control and they are defeated, they will definitely throw away the shields. Or, the main defensive weapons of the defending troops will be removed by the small cannons. War is about logistics. They have no way to use their advantages to counterattack, and can only passively defend. If we want to rely on mobile warfare, our commander must be stupid and advance into their encirclement alone. I believe that our commander won't be so stupid." Yes, it's just like India. Not the current India, but the India of our time. They only know how to buy weapons from others. They don't produce good weapons themselves and rely on buying. If they really fight, they will be used up after a few rounds. What will they do then? Buy more? If they don't use nuclear weapons, it won't take too long. 3 years, and the entire country will be worn down. Zhang Xiaobao followed and deduced. The cavalry that the Akengduo could think of was to gather at the periphery and wait for an opportunity to attack. Then they would make simple defensive equipment. This should be the result of previous small-scale conflicts. But if they had to rely on bulky and heavy wooden and iron shields to block the barrage, and were blasted by the small cannons a few times, would the production be able to keep up? How many people and tools did they have to produce the shields? Thus it sounded very serious. In reality, the use of artillery had always been beneficial to their side. As for which direction they should continue to advance and occupy, they would need to see the actual situation. It would take 3 to 5 days to understand. They're not going to fight a blitzkrieg, right? Zhang Xiaobao asked again. Relying on infantry to fight a blitzkrieg? Not to mention now, even Germany during World War II couldn't fight a blitzkrieg when faced with the current Akang duo. They had to fight a positional battle and advance step by step. Wang Wan chuckled and shook her head as she imagined the map of the Akang duo's territory. This was the strategy that had been formulated before. Originally, they wanted to wait for the Akang duo to gather more troops and supplies at the border. Then the navy would disembark. But there was a small problem, so they had to start the war early. Even if they started the war early, they had to take it slow. They had to give the Akang duo the illusion that the Tang Empire was attacking from land. The Akang duo probably wouldn't think that the Tang Empire would play a land battle. So, what we're waiting for now is Xinla's movement. I've been angry this whole time. Why did they have to wait for us to start the war? When their people go back, they'll give us some trouble. I'm guessing that they felt that they had received a lot of rewards from the Tang Emperor this time. They think that we have to be on good terms with them because we want to fight, so they took the opportunity to indulge. But they forgot about the two of us. F***ck, they dare to bully the women of the Tang Empire. If I can take this lying down, I'm not a man. I'd rather not fight the Akang duo to let them understand what they can do and what they can't do. Zhang Xiaobao thought of the previous matter again. The more he thought about it, the more sullen he felt. Wang Wan's face was also cold. She gritted her teeth and said, "This is not over. Even if they don't resist and let us catch them, we'll have to punish them when we have time. After we complete the early strategic goal of fighting the Akang duo, you go and cripple Xinla through economic means. I'll organize the troops. If they make a move, we'll go and kill them directly." Reporting, our troops in Mud Polo have broken through Guangyan City and are camping outside the city. At the same time, we're chasing the enemy who escaped from the city in the form of small troops. We're not going to get supplies from the city because we're afraid that the people in the city will play tricks. We'll continue to bombard or use explosives to blow up the walls in other directions of Guangyan City. Another person came in to report. Got it. Go and wait. Send back as soon as there's news. Who's in command in Mud Polo? They didn't send electricity when they attacked, and only told us when they drove people out of the city? Isn't this called a general on the outside can't obey the orders of the emperor? We'll deal with him later. That's referring to the situation when the communication system was not developed in the past. Now there are telegrams and various transmission points along the way. Would he die if he told us in advance? When Zhang Xiaobao heard that the city was broken and the troops were camping, he remembered to send a message and curse it angrily. Wang Wan looked at Zhang Xiaobao's expression and said with a smile, "That's our family's people. They probably feel that it's meaningless to tell us in advance. If they tell us in advance, we'll fight. If they don't tell us, we'll still fight. It's better to tell them after the fight. If it were the generals of the imperial court, they wouldn't dare to do so. It's easy to be accused of having bad intentions. Our family's people can be so flexible. They're clearly playing with us. I can't say whether it's good or bad to have such soldiers under us." Zhang Xiaobao also laughed. His family's people could do so because of Wang Wan's teaching. None of them were serious at all. Especially when facing weak opponents, they always liked to show off. If he was right, what if something went wrong? If he was wrong, there were many such generals in history who were famous generals. Alright, don't worry about him. If he can't fight, send a report to him in the middle of the night and scold him, Wang Wan said. He might not be able to sleep in the middle of the night. He'll definitely come up with some wicked ideas, like setting a trap or something to let more man-eating drillers do a night attack. Zhang Xiaobao analyzed this person's personality. That's possible, Wang Wan agreed. Reporting, our troops guarding Gamma Labo have not found the enemy crossing the river to fight. They're now crossing the river. The vanguard has already passed by 15,000 people. Another person came in to report. Wang Wan frowned and muttered. Then where are the enemy ships? You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.